75 years old, and I still wake up with a little guy saluting me.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
Come on, let's wake up.
Gotta wake up.
Are you sure you want to wake up to this?
Come on now, wake up.
I can't wait to wake up.
Wake up, idiot.
We have reached the part of June where the workout counts walking to the car. I think I'm already dripping in sweat just from the nice 30 feet walk out to the vehicle here on this Monday morning. Looks like it's going to be that way all week long. Thank you for starting your week with us. Happy belated Father's Day to any of our dads out there. To Andy, to Mark, happy Father's Day to both of you. My father, Brad, my father-in-law, Mike. Good Monday morning to you all. Andy, how's the time off?
It's great, makes it so much easier to wake up at, whatever time we wake up, 4:35, before then, after then, in the morning. But it's good to see you. A happy Father's Day. I'll reiterate what you said. You sound a little nasally today. You got a little congestion. Is it the 95-degree weather coming through here?
I feel like the allergies have hit me more in the last week or so.
Dude, you ain't kidding. It's funny. I've had more allergy issues probably when I lived here than even in the Ohio Valley, but it's good to see everyone's smiling face. Like I said, a happy belated Father's Day. I think Mark Dykton was telling us, I think he had the Father's Day from hell yesterday. He was just basically either sitting in traffic or driving in traffic. So at 10:01, he's going to go sleep for 10 hours, I would imagine. But everything was good my way. I assume, KB, everything was good with you guys. You're wearing your red shirt even though they lost last night.
Well, Ellie De La Cruz is quite the sight to see. So I feel like that the scoring of a off a pickoff move from second base probably is why I thought deserved to wear it. I hate Bryson DeChambeau, so I wasn't too happy about yesterday in the U.S. Open.
Well, he's a changed man. What are you talking about? The crowd loves him now.
Yes, yeah, very changed, right? Unbelievable U.S. Open. I mean, obviously, I'm obsessed with golf. I love it, but that venue, the heroic and choke level shots you got from multiple players there to play out, it's exactly what you would want. Two of the game's stars. That's what a major championship is all about. Really looking forward to Will Haskett coming up at 8 o'clock. So whoever created Father's Day on the U.S. Open as a golf fan, God bless that human. Yeah. I have no idea who did that, but thank you for that.
There are times, and golf does this, and it's obviously centered around the majors, predominantly a Ryder Cup, whatever it may be. But obviously we know the four majors. That, it's a Sunday afternoon and something's going on or nothing is going on, and it captures the imagination kind of the country. And so yesterday you had the combination of, Father's Day / the U.S. Open, and, for a lot of places, it's 100 degrees out. I mean, it's just miserable out. I mean, you guys know that. It's going to be well into the 90s this week, and so I don't know. I don't mind sitting outside with a fan on me in the 90, it's 93 degrees out, but I know the majority of people don't like that. So I kind of felt like it was one of those things where everyone was watching the U.S. Open. Like, you go on Twitter and everyone was lamenting the choke job, the gag job by your boy Rory McIlroy yesterday. Yeah, just unbelievable.
When Will joins us at 8, Will obviously grew up in the city, and I really enjoy our conversations with him because I think he provides really great context around any golf-related topics we throw his way. And I was thinking, just from an analogy standpoint, 3 weeks ago on this very Monday, we sat here, and in a way, I walked into the studio on that Monday morning, thought to myself, do we celebrate Newgarden first, or do we talk about Pato O'Ward's heartbreak first?
Right.
And you just went to Rory first.
Yeah,
you didn't go to Bryson.
He's the story.
When Bryson executed, as much as I hate Bryson, he executed one of the greatest shots we have ever seen in major championship history on the 72nd hole, that bunker shot to 3 feet. Just absolutely unbelievable. I for our non-golf fans out there, you ask anyone, it can be a 10 handicap, it can be a professional golfer, what is the most difficult shot in golf? And I guarantee you the overwhelming majority would say a 50 to 60-yard bunker shot like Bryson had in that moment. So to me, even if you're not, again, this huge golf fan, the jubilation and the heartbreak, I mean, we saw it firsthand in the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500, the New Garden elation, Pato Award seemingly not wanting to get out of his car, and then I thought NBC painted a really beautiful picture of it yesterday in Bryson's obvious emotion, and then Rory in that scoring tent looking like, someone had just, ran over his dog. Choke certainly is a fair word to use. I know it's a big word to use.
Well, that's what he did.
Yeah,
It's
just brutal. To me, again, continuing the Indy 500 analogy, I think it's some combination of Pato Award, J.R. Hildebrand in 11, and Marco Andretti in 06. I think it's that, based off everything Rory has gone through, personal life, the center of PGA Tour versus Live, and now 10 years without a major title. To me, it is on that level.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Now, are you going to be able to like Bryson a little bit more? He has changed his entire being over the last 8 to 9 months to a year. Now, I always liked Bryson because I always felt like he was just the meathead that was ready to drive the ball 400 yards. And then people didn't like him, and then I'm like, okay, wait a minute. If this guy's going to be any sort of a villain, you know how your boy over here pivots. So I was, I kind of like Bryson because of that. But now everybody likes him again because, the Live Tour, it doesn't matter that you went to the Live Tour and took all the money now in golf. That is, they don't talk about it on the broadcast anymore. So now Bryson is a liked individual. I mean, how do you have to, that's to bother you a little bit. All those people that used to ride hard with Kevin Bowen on disliking Bryson now like Bryson. That's what I saw yesterday.
Should I give more credit to maturation, to the ability to change? Should I do that?
I think you should. So I'm a Bryson guy, but I kind of feel like yesterday I was like, oh, this is going to be great.
Too many people are liking
He's
him
a
for your
hater.
liking.
Well, now I'm like, wait a minute. Now everyone loves the guy. Now he's a reclamation project. Like, he's changed his life. Okay. How did he do that?
He's great for golf. He is great for golf, and that's why the split is so splintering,
he's lost weight
frankly,
too.
To golf. Yeah, I mean,
feels like he's deflated a little bit. Not like Tom Brady.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean.
Certainly had some moments up there.
And let me give you 2 stats. No one had made an up and down, in that bunker all tournament long. Until he did on the 72nd hole when it mattered. At the literally the very end. And then the stat that's went around, I know everyone's seen it. Rory misses the 2 putts inside 3 feet. He was 496 for 496 before the debacle in the final couple holes there yesterday. Listen, it is a negative word. It's not a hot take word. Choking in sports is when you do the thing that you don't do, right? And that's literally what Rory did yesterday. He doesn't miss those shots. He quite literally never misses those shots. Has not done so this season. Did it twice yesterday.
I thought the bogey on 16 was the bigger deal, just because certainly we focus on the 72nd hole and all of that, and I don't know, maybe the camera angle behind the ball, we all watch it, and, he didn't give it the most confident stroke by any means. Granted, it was clearly a slider down the hill. But, he hits that second shot on 16, one of the hardest holes in the entire golf course. You're thinking there, he's walking off that green with par. And if you remember what the leaderboard looked like at that time, Bryson then has to attack.
Right.
He's got to make a birdie to come get Rory. That's the thought process at that point. Rory, of course, par 17. The fact that he missed, and if you want to get technical, 2 feet, I think 6 inches, I believe, was the putt on 16. 18 was a hair outside of it. The fact that one to me was the audible gasp. The one on 18, sure, there was a bit of an audible gasp from me, but the one on 16, I was like, what the, I was like, I was
Even he did.
Stunned.
Even he did. He kind of made a gesture like, what just happened there? Like, he was stunned by himself.
Because once you miss that, now the one on 18 becomes 5 feet longer. And that one, again, I thought it was a more difficult putt. Clearly, you watch the break, he's got to play it outside of the hole, but just unbelievable theater, unbelievable drama, exactly what golf needs. They need more of it. Terrific U.S. Open. I said to Will Haskett, we had him on last week. I want carnage. 8 people under par for the entire tournament. I don't know if we got maybe the amount of carnage, and, to be fair, I was probably a little tongue-in-cheek with some of that stuff to Will, but, that's what a U.S. Open should be. It should have to be this incredible, precise day of, if you hit it 162 yards instead of 164, you're going to pay for it. And I thought you saw that all week long. So, yeah, just a wild, wild U.S. Open.
Mark, you can answer this. How much was KB smooching up to Tiger before this?
Oh, my God.
Was it bad?
Yeah, Thursday. Yeah, you said you came in today, and I said he probably has a rough weekend because Tiger's weekend getting cut and then Bryson winning. and you said, yeah, I should, we need a reality check on Tiger. I'm like, you need the reality check. You said he's going to be hugging Charlie on Sunday, winning the championship and all that
I'm going to
stuff.
ask Will this when he joins us at 8. I walk away from Tiger's 36 holes. I didn't see physical deterioration. I didn't see massive limps out there. I saw a bit of a rusty golfer.
Maybe minor limbs. Okay, it's just the rust that Tiger needs to knock off.
I'm looking at this exiting the U.S. Open, thinking, okay, we can dial up a few more reps in between majors.
Right?
Is there something possibly? I mean, missed the cut by 2. It's not like he finished, where Phil Mickelson finished or anything like that. So I choose to look at it as more rust for Tiger and lack of reps than anything on that. I'm sure Will would love to field the Tiger question.
I'm sure
you weren't living and dying. You were living
U.S. Opens that we've had in years. Nothing's going to sum up me if I ask him a Tiger question.
One of the great saves on 18. Yeah.
He was living and dying on literally every Tiger shot where he's like, yeah,
Lord
clapping.
heavens.
And then, God, he's swearing under his breath in the breaks.
Yeah, Mark was so disgusted. He went opposite. Mark is a Tiger fan, but then after seeing my emotion, he then pivoted. Him and Corbin were heavily against Tiger.
Corbin wanted him to do double bogeys the rest of the round, and you were about to fight Corbin, I think.
During the 3 hours. So Will Haskett at 8, Tony East at 9. Not only are we less than, 10 days away from the NBA draft, the Fever have their first winning streak of the season. I thought yesterday, and honestly watched a lot of it, I thought the best performance of the season for Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, probably individually. I think you can make the case for both of them saying that, but I thought as a duo, Boston, ironically enough, when Christy Sides went full bench to the starters the other night in Connecticut, the one starter she left in there was Boston. And since then, she has played really, really well. I mean, looking much more like the Rookie of the Year we saw last season. And then again, Clark, very efficient. Big assist number, big rebound number. And I thought actually made a couple plays that weren't just the dagger 3 going to her left that we all saw, like a play on the defensive end, a big-time assist to Boston. So, again, beyond needed for the Fever as they have started this 5-game stretch with wins in each of their first 2.
Well, now also what it does is they have more wins than the Sky. They beat the Sky twice. Being off the last week and then a couple days the week before, I have, for the most part, and I feel bad for you guys, left the heavy lifting on all of the Caitlin Clark stuff has been to you guys to navigate the social issues around Caitlin Clark and every time she dribbles a basketball. And because of that narrative, we even got a storyline yesterday with the foul of Angel Reese on Caitlin Clark. And it's going to be, if not an every game thing, it seemingly is almost an every game thing. I saw our guy Stephen Holder was there, obviously with ESPN. I know a lot of national writers were there with the Olympic stuff, the swimming in town. By the way, did you watch any of that last night?
Oh yeah,
The Sweeneys were all over the Olympic swimming last night.
Tonight, who we've got in the pool? We've got
19 guys from Carmel. That's
yes, we have. I think I'm the only person ever to leave Carmel without a swimming Olympic medal. We've got Lily King in the pool tonight.
Okay.
In the final. And Mark, we have her on the show next week?
Yeah, next Tuesday.
Now, you want to talk about attitude? You want to talk about swagger? You want to talk about cockiness? That is Lily King. I love Lily King.
You're all in then. She's gonna obviously advance to the Olympics.
All in 2016. I mean, but
you would think. I mean, I don't know.
You watch these meets, and I mean, your wife can speak to it better than I. But it is wild how close these races are.
Oh yeah.
And literally, it's the winner of the race, and then in all likelihood, it sounds like second place goes the Olympics, and then third and fourth are finishing hundredths of a second off of it, and your Olympic dream is over for this 4-year cycle.
Well, it reminds me of the Indy 500 with the stuff you mentioned in the final turn in tenths of seconds.
But Pot Award can wait 365 days. These
are 3 years.
Have to wait another 4 years, and for some of them, age is a huge deal. That's why the Lily King thing to me is unbelievable that she's continuing to perform at this level. Because in some of these sports, maybe not swimming, but some of these sports, you get 1, maybe 2 cracks at it from an Olympic cycle standpoint. So yes, we have been watching the swimming a lot in the Bonehouse.
Yeah, I forget the name of the guy who's he's a backstroker. I apologize. And he's going to the Olympics, but this time 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, essentially, whatever it was, he finished third, did not make the Olympics. And the questions, and it's the right question, but it's, after he gets out of the water, it's, how did you go through this for 3 years knowing that it was going to come down to basically last night, whether you were going to learn from your mistakes from 3 or 4 years ago
it's
and fix
unbelievable
that or not.
drama.
Yeah, and you just think about that. I mean, usually it's next game. It's, in a week. It's next year. It's next season. It's never, in 4 seasons, right? That's going to be the case. So, we've been consuming a lot of that. As for the Fever, just quickly to go back, not to get us off too much, I thought, watching a lot of it once we got home yesterday, I thought it was one of their better performances. I think you can see, this is not one of the better teams, so it's obviously the Fever not against one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the league. But I just feel like the last couple games, Caitlin Clark has looked more comfortable, right? She looked like she was having to, at times, early on in the season, how to learn how to ride a bike again. You ever heard that analogy before, KB?
Sure.
That's a little bit of what I felt watching her early on. I don't feel that way as much leaving that game last night. Aaliyah Boston, the last, 3 games, has obviously been a lot better. And then you had we'll get to the sound and the checkdowns. Then you had the flagrant foul on top of it. And I swear there is going to be something. It feels like 80% of these games, there is something to where the performance or the on-court thing is not the leader, or is at least story B. And, of course, you got that with Angel Reese and the flagrant foul last night.
If it's not Reese, is it the story? If that's Dana Evans?
Probably not. Probably not nearly as much. But
zero issue with the foul. Call it a flagrant, move on.
But it's not a zero because this is the point. Of the last 3 weeks, the narrative has been built now around the league versus Caitlin Clark versus the league, her followers versus other, like this narrative, whether, I think it's kind of funny and BS, but the narratives in the sides have been drawn. And so that's why you get last night, whether it's Angel Reese or not, it's going to be one of the top stories. And then when it is Angel Reese, it's the top story.
Don't you think it's more, even if it was Angel Reese, but there weren't the post-game comments, it wouldn't be as elevated as it is because
Reese,
she opened her mouth in the post-game, that's where that comes from?
She certainly throws a whole lot onto that fire with that. Kind of like I said it when the Fever were struggling mightily, and how great it was for Christy Sides at times that all this off-the-court drama was overshadowing, was sweeping the Fever's performance under the rug. Now I feel the reverse of it. I feel bad for them. Like, they're playing better basketball.
Right.
And yet, if you watch anything from I hope we won't do it locally today. We'll try not to for the next 2.5 hours. But, Aaliyah Boston has played great basketball here in the last few games. I thought Lexi Hall gave them quality minutes late last night. She is not one that's been asked to play, deep into the fourth quarter this season. And then Clark, we all saw the videos after Thursday night, albeit in a win. She didn't shoot it good. And so what happened? She and Connor McCaffrey are in the gym late Thursday night. And what happens last night or yesterday afternoon? She shoots it great. So I guess a little bit to do with the WNBA standings. But, right now, the 8th seed, the Indiana Fever. So nothing till Wednesday. The Mystics, who have actually won 2 games since the Fever continued their winless effort throughout the season and beating them back last week. But winners 4 of 6, the Fever, and now 2 in a row on that end.
In that 5-game stretch that they called crucial, too. 2-0.
2-0 so far on that. Question for Will Haskett. Who wins more majors moving forward, Rory or Bryson?
You mean from now on? Like, let's slate is clean? Oh, I would go with Bryson. Right? I mean, Rory, 10 years now. He's had a couple chokers. This was a gag job. Would you go with Rory at this point? I do think Rory wins again, but I think his over is set at, it's either a half or 1.5 at this point with Rory. I mean, that's how I feel. Do you feel differently? I mean, Bryson's a younger guy, right?
When you see those moments in sports, I think a popular question, and very rightfully so, does that break Rory?
That's an absolute fair question.
Does he think about that? Golf is much more of a mental game as well. How often does he think about it? I did find it interesting throughout yesterday's final round. I mean, Rory was putting the hell out of the ball. I mean, he made 20-footer after 20-footer after 20-footer to run Bryson down. Rory was tremendous right around the turn there. But, you didn't see Rory bouncing around the green, showing a lot of emotion. And I might be really overanalyzing this.
Okay, I like this.
But watching him, I thought to myself, oh boy, he still has two hands on the steering wheel, and he's praying to get to that 18th green.
Right.
Like, it's one of the,
It's a good point.
It's just one of those hanging on for dear life.
Right.
Because I've been here so often. It's 7 straight top 10s in a U.S. Open. He's the only player in the history of that illustrious event to finish second alone, one shot each of the last 2 years. I mean, it is excruciating what he has gone through from a sporting standpoint. And again, I think you have to acknowledge some of the off-the-court stuff, off-the-field stuff, off-the-course stuff is probably what I should say, from the center of attention with PGA Tour Live. And then his marriage has become very public.
Sure it has.
Over the last month or two. So, wow.
Well, that was going to be my
heart
take.
says Rory, but man,
No, it's Bryson. The answer is Bryson.
Again, Rory, puts himself into these chances much more than Bryson does. Bryson's obviously had a really nice year, but it's not like Bryson's major record is anywhere near Rory's when you look at it from a top 5, top 10 standpoint. For what it's worth, they're 4 years apart in age, Rory being the older one. So that's a question to throw Will Haskett's way when he joins us coming up at 8.
Well, yeah, I have to ask Will, but that was going to be my take if Rory won. I had it polished off and everything else, and now that he was a single man, he's back winning golf tournaments again like he did 10 years ago.
He's back
Yeah, they got back together.
They're back together?
It was.
I didn't even know they're back together. That's why I lost them.
It was
Well,
right before the tournament.
Was
They
it
made
really?
amends.
Oh.
They made amends.
Well, no wonder he lost. Okay, so would have went the other
Wow.
way. Well, good.
Hope Nikki's not listening to this.
She's not. I can.
Happy Father's Day to Andy right there.
I can assure you that she's not. Yeah, happy Father's Day to everyone out there. We'll take a break. The sights and sounds of the weekend, including the Fevers win yesterday, the U.S. Open. Your morning checked out. It's coming up next. Monday morning with us. Thanks for spending it with us here. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, 8 o'clock, Will Haskett. Certainly tons to recap with one of the more drama-filled major championships we have seen in a while in the game of golf. And then Fever and Pacers talk. Tony East at 9, less than a week, or I guess I should say less than 10 days away from the NBA draft. And also the first winning streak of the season for the Fever. So looking forward to those conversations coming up later in the show.
Yeah, let's start on your morning check down right there with the Fever. 91-83 winners last night. Caitlin Clark, fantastic. Played 37 minutes, KB. 23 points, had the 9 assists and 8 rebounds. Now, we haven't talked too much about it, but obviously one of the main national stories is the flagrant foul. What was it, first half? Angel Reese goes for a block. I guess knocks down Clark, hits her in the head, knocks her down on the floor. It was upgraded to a flagrant 1. After the game, Caitlin Clark obviously was asked about it. Here's what she had to say.
I need to make these 2 free throws. That's all I'm thinking about. It's just a part of basketball. It is what it is. She's trying to make a play on the ball and get the block. But yeah, I mean, it happens. And those free throws, when you have to shoot them with nobody at the line, are kind of hard. So it's a little different than having people at the line. So I was just trying to focus on making those.
And she did so, and obviously the big game from Clark last night. Now, as for the game itself, again, I told you, it's 91-83. That's 2 in a row, 3 out of 4 now for the Fever. Post-game, head coach Christy Sides. The team just getting better.
This doesn't happen overnight, right? And so we just keep getting a little bit better. And that's been my message. It's about the Indiana Fever every game. When we're in the locker room talking pregame, it's about the Indiana Fever and how we just have to get better in our 40 minutes, and success will follow. And I think they're really buying into that.
Gosh, she needs Halls. She needs to throw Lossingers.
Yeah, but this was game 1. She sounded like
needs
that.
The whiskey.
KB, how is it game 1 she has sounded that bad, and it's now game 15 going to game 16, and she's still above water? How is she able to do anything with that voice?
It's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle. It's probably the most impressive thing for the Fever this season.
It's going to be permanent, I feel like. It's going to be like the Bruce Weber or the Tom Allen voice.
Well,
Tom Allen,
it always sounds like they have laryngitis.
See, I agree. Can her voice ever go back? Like, now I only know Christy Sides is having that voice.
She needs the Olympic break more than anybody.
Her
basketball team playing better, though. Leah Boston, especially from an individual standpoint, very good. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show, but to go back to the sequence for Caitlin Clark, obviously you look at Clark's numbers, 7 of 11, 23 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. Those are obvious. She had a block of Marina Mayberry there in the fourth quarter, and then came down on the other end. A beautiful pass to Boston for a huge bucket. Like, sequences like that, a play on the defensive end, I mean, oh my gosh, we almost should have a parade for that. So, that sequence to me, I thought was one of Clark's best here of her young career. So 2 in a row for the Fever. They have got the Mystics on Wednesday. And then again, they'll face the Dream in the Sky, who they've just beat twice more in this 5-game stretch, which they have started 2-0.
You need to get Christy Sides that spray. What's that spray you have when your voice is kind of...
Yes, the entertainment spray. I don't know if it's ever worked for me.
What's it called? Entertainer's Delight or something like that? Something weird.
Entertainer's Delight.
I think it is right.
I don't know if it worked too well. No offense.
No, it did not work well.
You basically were gargling that stuff for about 3 days, and your voice really didn't move.
I wasn't spraying it. I was drinking it. Yeah. At one point, it did not work. Speaking drinking, sounds like chocolate milk, among other things, if you want to know what Bryson DeChambeau is all about. He was consuming that after capturing the U.S. Open last night. One of the wilder finishes you will see as Rory McIlroy misses from, I guess officially, 3 feet 11 inches, I think it was, on the 18th hole there, after missing on the 16th hole from less than 3 feet. Again, the heartbreak, obvious, the choke, certainly there for Rory, but at the same time, Bryson with one of the greatest shots you will ever see on the 72nd hole of a major with that bunker shot to virtual tap-in range there. So the stats for this year's U.S. Open, pretty wild. First off, that's now 6 straight major wins by 6 different Americans. We have not seen that since the 1970s. If you look at Bryson.
It's a good stat.
Xander, Scotty Scheffler, Brian Harmon, Wyndham Clark, and Brooks Koepka. On the Rory front of it, he has now finished top 10 in 21 majors since his last win. That is 7 straight U.S. Opens. He's finished in the top 10. And again, he's the first player to finish second by himself by 1 shot in back-to-back U.S. Opens in the history of that championship.
Does Koepka still kind of unlike Bryce? Are him and Bryson cool, or do they not like each other? I don't know, where does that relationship
sent out
stand?
A tweet after saying, "Welcome to the 2 U.S. Open club."
Okay.
The picture was one of the worst pictures you'll ever see of 2 human beings seemingly trying to be friends or embrace. It was so awkward. I'm like, do we not have a fake image of you two on the Ryder Cup team high-fiving over the years?
Sure.
Yeah, I think Bryson got his back turned to the camera there on that one there. So
I'm looking at it right now. Okay, yeah, he does. He has his back turned. Okay, that is odd.
What is that photo there from Brooks Koepka on that end? Scotty Scheffler showed that he was human and doesn't need the Louisville PD to stop him there.
The Entertainer's Secret. That's the name of the spray.
The Entertainer's Secret.
The white
I like
bottle,
that.
little black cap on it.
Yeah, a little tuxedo action.
I like that. Quickly, Major League Baseball, Reds lost 5-4. They actually lost 2 out of 3 to Milwaukee. You can't win them all. You don't want to win them all. You don't want
They lost on a squeeze.
Listen, you don't want all the national media to
and the
start
Cubs can't win a
to
series,
Cincinnati.
right?
The Cubs can't win a series. They can't score any damn runs.
Was it the weekend or last week where, Mark, you were kind of live tweeting some Cubs games and you were unhappy?
I've been unhappy for a while now.
Okay.
Yeah, the people are getting on the bullpen. The bullpen can't close out any games. I'm like, that's because the offense is scoring 1 run a game, and they're in all these 1-run games. They stink to high heaven right now.
They did lose yesterday 2-1. They lost 2 out of 3 this weekend to St. Louis in Wrigley. I did see they flew the L on the St. Louis Cardinals Twitter account instead of the W. You got anything else? Game 5 tonight, KB?
6.5-point favorite, Boston in that one. What do we think?
Well, I took the Mavs in 7.
I had Boston in 5.
I'm right there with you,
Boston.
Eddie. I had the Mavs in 6.
So you might be in a good shape here if they win tonight. The NBA has to be praying a little bit. The Mavs, give us just one more game, right? Like, win tonight. Give us a game 6 to keep things interesting. I think Boston wins. Yeah, I'm going to think Boston wins. I'm not touching the 6.5.
The front office of the NBA and the NHL, the league offices, just had to be happy as hell that the Mavericks and the Oilers finally, put a game to win.
Of those 2 game 4s, 8-1 in the Stanley Cup, and then Boston loses by 38. I've said this quite often throughout the playoffs. How do your others play at home versus away from home? How about Dallas? They had 7 dudes hit a 3, not named Luka or Kyrie in Game 4. Luka and Kyrie were 1 of 14 from 3, and they won by 40. I mean, it was wild.
8-1. 8-1 in hockey is like 50-3 in the NFL.
Yeah, 8-1 in hockey is bigger than 30. As wild as 38
There's
points
no doubt.
is. So yeah, tonight that is 8:30. If there is a game 6, back in Dallas on Thursday for that one. And I would say here locally, the other appointment viewing tonight will be Lily King in the pool. I know a whole lot of Lily King fans. 100-meter breaststroke tonight for her. She'll do the 200-meter coming up a little bit later. She is the number 1 seed in this event, so needs a win and in all likelihood a second place to advance to her 3rd Olympics. And she's going to join us on the show coming up next week.
Yeah, can't wait for that. I'll be dialed in. The Sweeneys will be dialed into the happenings just down the road at Lucas Oil tonight. All right, let's take a break. On the other end, an update from Tyrese Haliburton on that hammy injury. Plus, like KB mentioned, Game 5 of the NBA Finals tonight. We'll talk about it next. It's a Monday. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Wake Up Call 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Monday Aquarium Company.
wake-up call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Will Haskett talking all of the drama we witnessed yesterday at Pinehurst #2. That's going to take place here in less than 20. How about, I want to make sure we snuck this in, a couple of shout-outs here to the IHSAA Baseball State Finals from over the weekend. Andy, from your neck of the woods, Gavin Jackson of Providence throws the first ever no-hitter in the history of the state finals.
I saw that. How about that? Good timing, huh?
2A over Ileana Christian, and then in the 4A game, Mooresville going for their first state title in school history. They lose a heartbreaker in 12 innings, the longest state. So you had the first no-hitter on Saturday in that first evening game. The second game, Mooresville Lake Central, it's the longest state final game in history, 12 innings. Shout out to Hogan Denny of Mooresville. 127 pitches, 8 2/3, 1 hit, and 12 strikeouts in relief. Unfortunately, for the local team, Mooresville lost that one to Lake Central 2-1. Saw a little highlight there of ball 4 to walk in the winning run. I would say with my naked eye, it was quite the debatable call on that end, but sounded like some unbelievable drama there over at Victory Field this weekend.
So they didn't go to replay. I'm kidding, of course. For the final pitch there, no replay.
Say, I think the umpire had some people in his shadow going off the field.
Was it Angel Hernandez? Did he find new work?
Brendan King just texted me and goes, "We ran out of commercial breaks in the 8th inning on Saturday."
That is our re-racking commercial breaks.
That is outstanding there. So yeah, Hogan Denny, certainly a performance of a lifetime there, but unfortunately for Mooresville, they could not get it done. 2-1. They lost that one in the 4A state title. Bar Reeve and New Prairie, your other state champions.
All right, so good stuff there. Again, Will Haskett will join us coming up at 8 o'clock. Tony East at 9 o'clock. I've been trying to find this. I have not been able to find it, but Tyrese Haliburton did give a small injury update. Now, he is in the midst of what last week it looked like he was on vacation. He and the girlfriend were posting a lot of on the beach type photos, okay? The two young people that are in love would post on the beach. So I think that was what last week and a half or so for Tyrese Haliburton. And then he said he's not going to be. He's going to take this week off as well. So essentially, he's given himself, 2.5-ish weeks, 3 weeks of rest before he ramps up. And again, we're just a couple weeks away from him being on Team USA.
Yeah, a couple of community appearances for Tyrese here in the last 48, 72 hours. Friday, I think we mentioned this, Mark, maybe on Thursday's show, he was a part of renovating those courts right there just south of the fairgrounds. I think we all have seen them if you're driving north on Benford, right there on the east side, Fall Creek Parkway. So Tyrese was there and then had his own basketball camp on Saturday. He said he sprinted, running full speed for the first time post-injury on Friday.
Okay.
So if you go back to Game 2, it was like May 22nd, 23rd. So, I don't know if anyone cares about it, but, maybe there's a thought of, hey, if the Pacers can extend this series, could Haliburton get back? Well, it ended up being, June 14th before he ran full speed.
May 27th. That was the final
27th?
game. But he was injured on what game? Technically, it's game 2 he was injured,
so that
right?
was what, 22nd, 23rd?
The 23rd. May 23rd, it was a Thursday. It was technically when he started to feel the injury going into halftime of game, whatever it was, 2 against Boston.
About 3.5 weeks off of that. So again, ran full speed on Friday, said that he will take this week off of basketball activities again and then ramp it up. So he wants kind of a 2-week ramp-up period with some two-a-days involved in there before he has to report for Team USA in their training camp. It's 3 weeks from Team USA. So another vacation for him this week. I know Tony East, I believe, was at that court renovations. We can actually ask Tony when he joins us coming up at 9 o'clock. But that's the latest on the Tyrese.
Where's
Haliburton
Tyrese going?
front.
Do we know? You said it's a vacation. So is he off? Is he not in the area then? Is he going off to the beach again?
Did not
back-to-back beach weeks?
Did not get a rundown on Turks and Caicos or Cabo.
He looked like he was having a good time, though.
Santorini or wherever on that.
He and Josh Hart going to hang out in the offseason, sounds like. Did you see their little Twitter
so
beef?
They were chirping back. Instagram comments, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got on that like 2 months ago. Remember, I was like, hey, did Josh Hart really say this on Instagram? And it ended up being fake news because it seems like everything is fake news on Twitter these days. So they actually did go a little back in. So that was,
It was
real
related
then.
to their fashion, right? Mark?
Josh
Yeah.
Hart took a shot at Tyrese Haliburton, says he like dressed like a clown all season long, and then Tyrese Haliburton fired back, "You became an analyst because you got bounced by us in the playoffs."
Both are
Which
good
I thought
answers.
was a very good retort.
Those are both fantastic answers. Yeah,
Weren't they on Team USA together? Wasn't Josh Hart was on it, right? Back in the fall?
I believe you're right.
I think
yeah.
so. Yeah.
You gotta love that.
There's some hate. There's some love, but there's a little bit of hate. What do you think Game 5 tonight? I mean, you picked Boston to win, so you. I mean, not that it really matters. They win in 6. It's not like it's a huge
Boston, and I feel like I'm repeating myself in a way of Dallas and Minnesota in the Western Conference Finals. Of, to me, Game 5 when you get down 3-0, obviously you have to win Game 4 to get to Game 5. But Game 5 to me, that is like the weight on the shoulders of Boston.
Okay, so that's how you view it. Okay,
Because
I can see that.
They're home tonight. They're favored by 6.5. They don't want to get on a plane back to Dallas.
Well, you want to win in front of your fans.
They want the
right?
next plane flight to be wherever Tyrese Haliburton is going for vacation. They want to celebrate somewhere. So I do find this part of a 3-1 lead when the home team is at home, that one to be kind of a mentally entertaining aspect to it. Again, like I said a few minutes ago, Dallas's others shot it exceptionally well in Game 4. I don't expect them to do that in the Garden tonight, but, can they put some late game pressure moments on Boston? If you go back to Game 3, Dallas was right there late in that game, and Luka fouls out.
Sure.
So, can you get to 3-4 minutes to go, and Kyrie and Luka are both on the floor, and, as exceptional as the individual talent is for both of these teams, Kyrie and Luka are much more have been there, done that late games than even some of those guys for Boston are. So, very curious to see how it plays out. And then, of course, the trickle-down effect, Andy, is whenever the series does end, and something to ask Tony East again when he joins us at 9, how quickly does the Pascal Siakam max deal, does it look like what we envision? I think that is something I'm curious about because that obviously starts and really is a huge piece of the pie in what your offseason puzzle looks like.
The Siakam thing, I'll get to Game 5 here in a second. The Siakam thing seems like it's a foregone conclusion, right? But it still has to happen, and it's still a big story. But I'm also not nervous about it. All those things would be relatively true, right? I mean, you're not nervous about Pascal Siakam going elsewhere, but it's still a big story, even though it seems as if it's a foregone conclusion. We'll talk with Tony at 9 o'clock. My question for you, if Boston were to win tonight, and I think there's a great chance that Boston does win tonight, and then people can argue, Jaylen Brown will win MVP, and people can argue about Tatum and whatever narratives or how good of a team are they, or can they be a dynasty, and all this other nonsense that will immediately be put out there. My question is almost on the Dallas side of this. Does Dallas winning Game 4, and let's say they lose a close one tonight. Let's say it's not one of those blowouts. Let's say they lose 107-105, right? One of the big shot makers for the Celtics does what they do so very often at the end of the game. My question for you, and I guess for Dallas fans, would be, does winning Game 4 ease at all any of the angst around how you played in the NBA Finals? I mean, let's not forget, this series to me, if Boston were to win tonight, I know the Boston narratives would be out there, but my conversation would be, you guys not remember how much we crushed Luka for how bad and embarrassing his defensive effort has been in this series? I mean, to me, Brian Windhorst sitting up there after Game 3 and ethering Luka on picking up foul number 6 on a play.
Is that an SAT word? Ethering?
It's a real word, is it not? Well, ether is. Can you throw an ing at the end of it?
Yeah, works for me. Sounds good.
I hope he
Sounded
can.
smart.
Well, but did he not? I mean, that's what he did.
He went blowtorch.
You rarely see it was going after a guy's effort and how hard he was playing and how dialed into the game he was.
Rightfully so.
And no, I think he was spot on. I love Luka as a player, but his defense has been bad. It was in Game 3. So I'm wondering, if they would have been swept the other night, it really would have been, I feel like, really harsh on the Mavericks. Given that they won a game, does it lessen the harshness on the criticism of how Kyrie played for the most part in this series and how Luka defensively is going to have to grow as a player? Luka's almost reminds me a little bit of the Pacers this year. You don't have to be the best defense, but you can't be the worst defense, and you can't be historically bad, and at times it feels like he is historically bad, and I'm saying that as a guy who thinks the world of him as a player.
Now, see, Kevin, Ether is a diss track that Nas sent out to Jay-Z in his 2001 album, Stillmatic.
Is that what
so
Andy
to
was
ether
going for
somebody is to destroy them basically verbally. So
that's what he did.
There you go. There's your hip-hop lesson of the day.
Shout out to Brian Windhorse and Andy Sweeney for combining on that effort there. I would say if you're Dallas, you'd be thoroughly disappointed even in losing in 5. I mean, I don't want to act like it was a 50-50 split, but I mean, you two picked Dallas, and I didn't think it was that crazy. I mean, I picked Boston, but still, I didn't look at it like, people are just flat out idiots for picking Dallas. I totally understood where you were coming from in that thought. It is kind of wild that, we could end this. Let's say the playoffs end tonight and Boston wins it. The Pacers are the one team that didn't beat Boston of the 4 series.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of wild to think,
sure.
You felt like the Pacers were super competitive in those 4 games, but yet Dallas won 1, Miami won 1, and Cleveland won 1 in each of those 4. And I don't think I'm saying this entirely tongue-in-cheek, but so tonight's tip is 8:30, is that correct?
8:30 tonight. Well, I have the game right here on the fan. Coverage at 7:30.
I think by 11:47 p.m.
Okay, 11:47.
We'll get our Peaks message board post. Brad Stevens taking over for Mike Woodson in 2025.
Why?
Right?
Just because the Boston series is over?
It's over.
Just because
Brad's
the
got
season's
his title.
over?
He's architect his title, right? Isn't the kid going to Notre Dame next year? Kids are out of the house.
Yeah, but
right?
I thought NIL has bought Mike Woodson a great team this season. He flipped his roster in a month. Come on.
You're gonna have to pass the torch at some point here.
I was up in Bloomington for a day. Took a little gas up there. Went to Mother Bears. Did a little walk.
Shout out.
A little walking around the campus. It was 100 degrees, so it was great.
Mother Bears is so good.
It is so good.
Jealous of that. I am, in all seriousness, I am curious if Brad Stevens is going to continue to do this.
Okay, but you don't think he's taking over IU, right? You mean could he go
do
something else with his life?
Like what? Play golf?
You think IU fans want Brad Stevens, but does Brad Stevens want
do
IU?
this to
Hasn't Brad
IU
always
fans.
said that was the dream job?
Well, don't you have to wait for Mike Woodson to fail this year?
Well,
he's got to sit for a year,
tell
right?
that to Scott Dolson.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. I'd love
Or
to
maybe
tell
Quinn
that to
Buckner,
Scott Dolson.
honestly, probably
I was about to say.
on that end. Yeah, game 5 tonight, 6.5 point.
Yeah,
favorite.
we'll have
from a Stevens standpoint here, I do think it'd be pretty cool if he were to get this title on that end. So we'll see
11:47 tonight.
Yeah, maybe
I
earlier,
will be
right?
on Peegs.com on the message board there. All right, Will Haskett's going to join us. Is the story more Bryson today or Rory? Our golf analyst, Will Haskett, he joins us next here on The Fan on this Monday.
The Ride with JMV.
Anytime.
It's Ether, Kevin. This is the song that that Andy Sweeney was referring to.
Ethering on that end.
It's kind of like the beef that Kendrick Lamar and Drake currently have going on.
Is that Bryson and Rory here on this Monday morning?
Sure.
Will Haskett, PGA Tour Radio, to recap one of the more drama-filled Sundays you'll see in major championship history. Well, it might be lazy, but I feel like in this market, you obviously grew up here. You try to make connections to local things. The finish yesterday, anything Indy 500 related, Newgarden, unbelievable move on lap 200. Bryson, I think one of the greatest shots you'll see in major championship history on the 72nd hole. Bryson and Newgarden in a way. I think you could kind of compare the two. Pato Award's heartbreak, maybe not at the level of Rory, but I think it's pretty darn close to it. Not to say Pato choked necessarily. Anything there on that end?
I would go farther back. So as a lifelong resident and third-generation Andretti fan, I will refer to yesterday as the Sam Hornish passing of Marco Andretti. That's kind of the way that it felt, is that you had – and again, Bryson has done amazing work over the last couple of years to sort of refurbish his image, and so it wasn't the same level of cheering against Bryson in that crowd. I think that's incredible. I mean, I was on site in his last season or season before his last season on the PGA Tour when he was in a playoff against Patrick Cantlay at the BMW Championship, and it was notable for how many people were cheering against Bryson. And this is cheering for a guy in Patrick Cantlay who's kind of robotic and is really hard, I think, to generate that level of fan appeal. So there was a huge fan animosity towards Bryson. So I don't want to take away the fact that he has done an incredible job of turning himself into a more positive protagonist, I think, in the sport of golf, even with the move to live. But yesterday was definitely the world, and much of that gallery was trying to get Rory across the line. And Rory did everything he could. And even when Bryson would make a little bit of a move, like Hornish did on the 198th lap, and got kind of blocked off there, then all of a sudden there was this gap. And all Marco had to do, all Rory had to do, was to just get it across the line, but not be too timid. And guess what happened? Marco was too timid and opened the door for Sam Hornish to do something great. Rory misses two putts inside of 4 feet, one of them inside of 3 feet, the first time he's done that all season long. And Bryson, who really didn't have his best game yesterday like he had the first 3 days, hits the best shot of anybody yesterday on the 72nd hole to win that golf tournament. So to me, that's the appropriate comp.
All right, Will, so here's my question. I want to get into Rory here in a second because I'm not sure what's the bigger story here, Bryson or Rory, and Rory storms off and he peels out and he's gone, and eventually we may hear from him. I know, obviously, the heartbreak, it's been a rough few years, decade, few weeks, whatever you want to say for him. What did Bryson do to refurbish that image? Because I liked him when he was kind of like the bad guy, and then you had him and, Brooks used to go back at each other and the eye rolling and everything like that. But Bryson does seem different. What has he done to kind of turn a different leaf? I mean, he seems to be a guy that was cheered on yesterday for the most part.
I think it's two, threefold. There's a lot of different ways that we could go with this one. But I think a big part of it, like, he was in a dark place, just kind of battling his own game, and said a lot of things that were sort of out of an era of frustration that just led people to think he was sort of petulant. And then by going to live, which I have no problem saying no one is truly paying attention to, he was able to just kind of coast into a more comfortable environment where there was less eyeballs, less pressure. It's way more laid back, and he could just sort of find himself comfortably around like a group of teammates and people and continue to get better. And then that was sort of coupled with the fact that he's always kind of embraced social media, but has really turned himself into a fun YouTube follow, challenging people to matches, playing, games with 100-year-old equipment, trying to break 50 from the forward tees, like just doing kind of wild and crazy stuff. Not wild and crazy, but doing things that I think that segment of the golf fandom, are more attracted to. And then I saw a perfect quote. My kids are really into Young Sheldon right now. So we were like binging 7 seasons worth of the show Young Sheldon. And Bryson is kind of Young Sheldon in a lot of respects. Like, he's super smart to a fault, and has always been sort of socially awkward within that level of uniqueness within the game. And I think with more time, with more understanding of what to say and what not to say and how to act and how to embrace certain people and not be so sort of rigid and look at me, I'm the smartest person in the room. He's just learned. He's growing up. He's matured. And so I think that those are all the various factors. And again, I thought it was a very satisfying win yesterday. I mean, I tweeted this out last night. I am 100% convinced that the best product so far that Live Golf has produced is Bryson 2.0. Like, it really resonated. It resurrected his career, and he's different. And golf always needs difference. So, good on him. Like, I've been a fan of his for a long time. Obviously, people know that, I flock to some of the nerdy stuff within golf. And for some people that like nerdy things in golf, he's sort of been the Pied Piper of golf nerds over the last 5 to 10 years.
Not sure I'm going to be able to get the Sheldon Bryson reference out of my head for the rest of the day. Will Haskett with the Sierra Payless Slickers hotline. As much as I dislike Bryson, I could not agree more with you. I do think he's important for the game of golf, given how unique of a character he is. I want to go to Rory. Again, kind of leading off the show, I felt like Monday after the 500. Do we start Pato? Do we start Rory? Or do we go Newgarden? And do we go Bryson? Because both storylines are so compelling. How do you put into words the heartbreak? To me, I'm watching that yesterday, Will, and I'm like, Rory is pouring in 20-footers. Like, he does not do this on Sunday of a major. We remember what happened with Cam Smith at St. Andrews a few years ago. Rory couldn't make a putt, a longish putt on that Sunday. But at times, Will, I'm watching him make those 20-footers and thinking to myself, he's got two hands in the steering wheel. He's not celebrating these putts. He's not, like, going – it's like he is holding on for dear life for the 18th hole, and then we saw what happened on the 18th. What do you make of Rory and another just probably the most excruciating heartbreak of all heartbreaks for him?
Yeah, I think everything was trending towards him being able to have that round. He hit it better than anybody else throughout the entire week. And a lot of people will say, water finds its level. And it just sort of felt like there was going to be that putting round for him, and it just happened to show up in this particular round of golf. And Kevin, I'll put it into some perspective. And I'll use a strokes gained statistic. So we measure these guys based off of sort of these metrics of strokes gained. It's the analytical way of showing like how they are compared to the field. Through the first 14 holes of the round yesterday for Rory McIlroy, if he just has an average putting performance the last 3 holes, he was going to have the best putting round of his career. Not of the season or anything like that. He was I say that in the last 10 years. You'd have to go back to the 2014 Memorial Tournament, the last time he would have had a putting round that approached the strokes gained numbers that he was already on through the first 14 holes. And then he lost 2 strokes to the field on average on those last 4 holes, including the couple of bunnies that he missed. So again, it was just about getting it across the line. And I think the thing to me is that so many times the things that have popped up, the mistakes that have happened for Rory, many of them have happened early in majors, pressing too much on a Thursday or snap hooking his tee shot out of bounds when the Open Championship is in his home country at Portrush a couple of years ago, and the thing was over before it really started. And yet, like, all of these swings, all of these shots, for the most part, he was executing. And then yesterday was weird because I thought he hit a perfect shot on 5, and those greens were so messed up that then it gets somehow repelled off and then into a impossible situation, and he makes bogey. But then yet, like, on the par 3 on the back, I don't really know what he was doing, hitting a shot that wasn't towering at 15. Hits a sort of boring trajectory that was always going to race over that green and probably lead to bogey. And then obviously we have the 2 short putt misses coming down the stretch. I really don't know how to unpack it. I think a lot of us are still sort of in shock about what it was. I hate using the word choke because I feel like it's overused, but it's really hard to ignore that when it is, he had never missed a putt inside of 3 feet all year. And he had a 2-foot 10-incher, which granted had a cup worth of break in it. Like, that is not exactly the putt that I want to close out a $5 bet against you, on 18 either, a downhiller that, has 18 inches worth of break in it. But he's got to find a way to make that happen because he did all of the right things. He's changed his game in the last 4 years to play harder golf courses. He wants to be better on the toughest golf courses, and he did. Like, he was spectacular all week long. And then the moment was there. Like, all he has to do is bury 2 little tiny putts. Like, that's an alpha move, and he couldn't rise to that occasion. And it's so sad to watch. And again, I tried to stay away from being sports talky guy when it comes to, labeling guys with chokes because, honestly, I don't know how they take the putter back. let alone, make it in the first place. If you've ever been in that position, just trying to grind out anything on a golf course, I have the utmost respect for those guys doing it in that cauldron. But yes, I think it's very appropriate today to use the word choke when talking about Rory.
Again, Will Haskett, PJ Tour Radio with us, Payless Liquors Hotline. Will, I have not been a Bryson fan. I respect the hell out of the uniqueness. And again, the shot yesterday out of the bunker on 18 is one of the greatest, frankly, in major championship history. At times, it's just a little cringeworthy for me. It feels a little rehearsed. I should probably give more credit to the repairable image, however you want to describe it. I know I'm largely in the wrong on this sort of thought, but I want you, as someone that is on tour much more frequently, obviously, than I am, to kind of share a little bit on the Bryson background, if you will, for our audience. I, again, found it fitting that all of a sudden, I used to wear the hat because of Payne Stewart. It's like, wait a minute, I thought it was Ben Hogan. Like, does it just kind of fit the narrative at the time with Bryson? Yeah. So, again, for our audience that does not pay attention to one of the wilder characters out there, and again, a guy that golf needs, let us into what Bryson's all about.
Yeah, I think what makes Bryson so unique and what is so impressive to me is his mind is so active. And, excuse me, it's turned into a sport where guys that don't have the most active of minds are the ones that thrive the most. And, I also put this on social yesterday. I don't think it's very close that Bryson's the most talented golfer in the world. And I say that because he has found ways that he's comfortable with to satisfy his quest for more. And he keeps reinventing, whether he has single length irons and that includes his wedges. So he's hitting some of these pitch shots from an incredibly upright stance with longer clubs than the wedge that you would traditionally have in your bag, which takes a lot of hands and feel out of it. But for some of the shots he was hitting this week, and I thought they did a really good job on the broadcast. If you're watching TV yesterday, Brandel Chambly, I thought, did a really good job expressing that the margin for error on some of the shots that Bryson is hitting because of how he chooses to hit golf shots and the equipment that he has is significantly smaller than the other guys in the field that are using more traditional stuff. This was a guy who in college, when he was one of the rare people, he's had the goods for a very long time. He's one of a handful of players. It's Jack, Tiger, Phil, Ryan Moore, and I think one other since then, who won an NCAA championship and a U.S. Amateur in the same year. He's won at all of the levels growing up. So we knew who Bryson was from a very young sort of age. But he was a guy who did everything in his power to hit every fairway 15 years ago because he thought that was what was most important. And then you fast forward to a few years ago, he's eating protein shakes and working out 6 times a day during the pandemic because he's recognized with modern analytics that distance matters. And he became the longest player in all of the professional game. So there's all of these things that he has done. We don't have enough time in the show to go through all the little things that Bryson has done. But to me, it's just so impressive because as somebody else who considers himself to have an always sort of working, twitchy mind, golf is a really hard sport when you're just thinking all the time. And the best golfers in the world right now have learned through sports psychologists how to shut that down, how to shut the noise out between shots. Bryson is constantly noise. There's always noise in his head. And he's figured out a way to channel that into all of these little permutations, whether he's spraying his golf balls on the range with a mister and then learning about what it means when there's a little bit of dew on the ball. We roll our eyes at some of that stuff, but I honestly think it's like a psychological tool that he uses to get the most out of him because he knows that if he doesn't overthink things, then his brain's just going to distract him. He's not going to be able to execute. So I hope that answered your question. But, he's been a great golfer for a really long time, and he continues to sort of reinvent himself through thinking, probably to a fault sometimes. But I think it shows his talent that he's able to continue doing it and win at the highest level with, honestly, a technique and a set of golf clubs and a swing out of his shoes mentality that 99.9% of the guys that were in the field this week at the U.S. Open, they wouldn't be able to break par, let alone make the cut, trying to do the things with the equipment that Bryson does. He's an incredible talent.
Will Haskett joining us here on the Wake Up Call on this Monday. Payless Liquors Hotline, obviously talking golf and the great U.S. Open yesterday on Father's Day. If I were to have you, Will, set the Vegas over-under on Rory McIlroy major championships the rest of the way for him, where would you put it? A half, 1.5, that he gets one? Does he get a second? What do you think happens after he goes through this heartbreak and the last decade being close so many times?
I think winning a major is just hard for anybody. So I think that Vegas, if they want the closest thing to even money, would probably set something like that at a half. I'd like to think it's 1.5. He's too good of a player. He's too this is what, 6 consecutive top 10s in U.S. Opens for Rory McIlroy. I think that, it's just ridiculous how good his talent is to get to that point. He could bounce right back and win the Open next month. The schedule next year sets up really well for his game, for his driving dominance for majors. He's 35 years old, so I would say that his window to win majors were probably in the last 5 years of a legitimate window, barring injury. But I do like the next, 13 months in terms of the setup of tournaments. And he has shown a level of consistency over the last few years that gives me reason to think that he's going to be in this moment again. The question is, can he compartmentalize what happened with the putter yesterday and turn that into the emotion needed to make that putt when it matters most? Because I think he's going to be in the mix. The question is, can he step up and do what he did yesterday, the first 14 holes, and avoid what he did the last 4?
More majors for Bryson or Rory the rest of the way?
That's a great question. I'll just go with probabilities. Bryson just won the last one, so the odds of him winning another one soon, I don't know how good those are. I'll still take Rory. I do think Rory is the better player. I know I said that Bryson's the most talented golfer. I said that really just out of what he does with with the wacky stuff. I think Rory is still the better golfer week in and week out than that. So I think that Rory is probably the appropriate answer. But yeah, Bryson's back, and he's going to be a factor in a lot of different majors. But U.S. Opens and PGA Championships are kind of tailor-made for Bryson.
Well, I've got 2 to end it here. And again, appreciate your time on this Monday morning. Will Haskett, PJ Tour Radio, with us here. When we had you on last week, I was obviously, and, admittedly, probably a little tongue-in-cheek, wanting carnage, and said that to you quite often. And you, very wisely kind of pulled the reins back a little bit. Carnage, it would, I think, be a little too harsh to describe Pinehurst this week. But I thought an extremely defining U.S. Open test. 8 guys under par. The precision between good and a bad shot is such a thin line. You saw it with Rory a couple times yesterday. You saw it with every player in the field. To me, I loved what we witnessed. For 1 week out of the year, I think it's perfect. How would you describe how Pinehurst played and kind of define the U.S. Open?
Yeah, I think what people have to realize is that every week when we're yelling at it, whether it's for a U.S. Open to be tough or for any golf tournament, the scoring's too bad or too good, the number one determining factor in all of that is Mother Nature. Like, if she wants the golf course to be hard, she can let the golf course be hard. If she wants the golf course to be easy, then Mother Nature can make the golf course easy. It was hot. It didn't rain all week. They were able, with the change to Bermuda greens for the grass surface down there, which loves heat, they were able to fully control that golf course. It would have been a completely different scenario if it was a cool snap in the Carolinas and it dumped rain for 2 different days. Then we'd be like, oh, why is the golf course not hard enough? So number one, the USGA had full control of the setup. But I agree with you. I thought they also then did a very good job of using the property the way that it should be, not worried necessarily about protecting par, but using an already hard golf course to make it great, and learning, I honestly believe, from their mistakes a couple of weeks ago at the U.S. Women's Open, when that Thursday they had 1 or 2 hole locations that were just not fair. They were just wrong, and it led to bloated scores and angry bodies. And yesterday, the golf course was about a shot and a third easier on Sunday than it was on Saturday. They actually opened up a couple of hole locations in some places to reward guys that wanted to go for it. And that creates the best drama. And while a lot of people, a lot of my peers, especially many of the social media influencers, panned the PGA Championship last month because of how ridiculous the scores were and how soft the golf course was, which was, again, a product of Mother Nature more than anything else, we still got a really fun show of guys making birdies at each other between Xander and Victor Hovland and Bryson on that back 9. And what I wanted to avoid, Kevin, was the inability to make any birdies. And we had the ability yesterday to make a run, the tee up on 13, a couple of hole locations that were gettable. I don't know how much fun yesterday would have been if Rory and Bryson and Cantlay and all these guys combined to make 2 birdies. But instead, we had that volatility. And so, yes, I agree with you. I thought it was perfect. And I don't think the USGA was so concerned with making par the ultimate score that you're trying to attain that they were then sort of put into a position or put themselves in a position to have the perfect setup. So, yes, that's a really long-winded way of me applauding the USGA because I thought they got it 100% right yesterday.
To close it out, I provide drunk Tiger thoughts. You
Here we
provide
go, Will. Here we
sober Tiger thoughts. He misses the cut by 2. I think quite often, Will, over the last few years, I've watched Tiger play in these events, and I've thought it's brittle, it's broken, it's borderline dead. Watching him play golf, and I'm thinking it's a miracle that he, is able to even finish some of these holes. I watched this week and thought he looks rusty. He doesn't look dead to me.
No.
I just felt like the body looked somewhat decent for once, and I thought it was mostly rust. Am I being drunk again with those thoughts?
No, I mean, every time he plays, you look at a guy who needs more competitive reps. Like, you can't simulate the shots around Pinehurst under the pressure by hitting the chips and pitches against Charlie in the backyard. Like, I know he's got unlimited funds and he's got a grounds crew on speed dial, and he can, dial up his backyard short game facility or go down to the Bears Club or wherever and try to simulate that. But there's a real thing about playing, more than just 4 tournaments a year and then having the ability to play well in that. So he needs competitive reps, but then it's the catch-22 of will the body allow it? And that's what I keep seeing in all these majors is you can't show up. Like, these guys, like we talked about it last week, Scottie Scheffler is playing as well as Tiger Woods played for all but 2 seasons of his storied sort of career. Like, the guys that he's going up against are almost as good as he was in some respects at that level. And now he's 48 years old. Like, you can't just show up and fake it from a competitive golf standpoint. Now, some news did also come out last week that the PGA Tour Policy Board is about to say that Tiger Woods is now a lifetime member. They're going to sort of bestow an honorary membership on him. He's already a life member because of his quality of wins, but by taking it up the next level, it sort of paves the way for him to play in any signature event if he wants to. He claims that the pain is gone, all the fusion has sort of helped, but I don't know. Like, he made it seem like he could play 8 times a year when he talked last December, and that's not going to happen this year. So is there even a possibility of a future where he plays 8 times a year? Is there a possibility in 2 years he plays some Champions Tour events? Like, what an amazing, opportunity that would be for that tour if he wants to play in the North of 50 club. I don't know, but there's just no way he can compete against the best in the world by only teeing it up in a competitive golf tournament once every 7 to 8 weeks.
We've kept you way too long. JT did tweet at us.
I'll stay for the whole hour. It was so good yesterday. I'm not on Sirius XM today. Like, I'll happily talk all the way through the next show.
Will wanted 2 segments. He tweeted at us. Didn't you tweet at us last night, Will?
I take them all,
I need 2 segments.
Is blowing up right now. I think I'm doing the car wash.
He's giving
Charlotte,
us
Atlanta. I got a lot of people texting.
We can do
right
a young
now, so
Sheldon breakdown too.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's giving us Bryson out of the bunker here on 18 with his effort. JT did want to ask about Scottie Scheffler. Your thoughts on the week for him? I don't know where he finished, but certainly wasn't anywhere high.
No, it was weird to see Scottie not play well after being so dominant, and it really was the rust. It wasn't rust. He was just off. He was off with his swing, and we just haven't seen that in so long. That's how good it's been. It's his worst finish since 2022, and he made the cut, the U.S. Open, and his finish was the worst one since the fall of nearly 2 years ago. He did say one thing, and I did think this in the back of my mind, but both he and my pick to win this week was Colin Morikawa. And both of them didn't get off to the greatest of starts. And you have to remember, they played the most consequential golf at the hardest time down the stretch late on Sunday last week at Memorial. And a lot of guys love to play the week before a major just to kind of get loose. But Memorial is just a different level of test, too, compared to a regular PGA Tour week. And he did sort of mention on Saturday when someone asked him the question, this being Scottie Scheffler, that, maybe he was a little bit worn out from having to win that tournament. And I think that's subtle enough of a comment. I'll be curious to see how the PGA Tour, which is ever tweaking its schedule in this weird golf landscape, what they do next year when it comes to this stacking of signature events and majors. I love the idea of 2, 2, 2, and 2. 2 weeks of regular events, 2 weeks of signature events / majors. Because we've got another signature event this week. Like, all the guys, top guys are heading on the PGA Tour, that is, not the live guys like Bryson, are all heading to Connecticut to play in the Travelers. So it's another week with a loaded field, and I'm excited to watch it and to call a little bit of it later this week. But I also recognize that, these guys that played Memorial and then this past week at Pinehurst, I mean, they're going to be zombies walking in to Cromwell this week in Connecticut because of how much high leverage golf they've played. So I'll be really curious to see what happens next year, especially in advance of the U.S. Open, because Scotty just did not have his A game from the very beginning, and I do wonder how much of that was just the residual hangover of having to grind for 4 days at Jack's place.
When he's not providing us with unbelievable golf insight, it's young Sheldon in the Haskett household.
Kids love it, man.
Currently, right now. Ben, is that what we have to look forward to? Because right now we are, still stuck in Bluey world.
Yeah, so I'm late to the Bluey party because my daughter is 9. And I will say this, young Sheldon probably a little bit too advanced for my 9-year-old. Like, we got the
Bryson DeChambeau of golf
pregnancy line last night, and it was like, okay, we don't really know. I don't know if we need
Nothing
to be
says
going
Happy
here,
Father's Day like that.
Yeah, I was like, oh boy, okay, looking over, kind of doing the laugh, like, ha, 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 like that first time remember when you were with your parents when you were like 13 years old, it was like, in the 80s when every movie had like 5 seconds of gratuitous nudity and you're just kind of awkwardly like laughing it off. Like that was sort of the moment last night with the kids, but no, it's a fun, harmless little show.
I saw Titanic in theaters with my parents, and that Kate Winslet
God.
scene, you're like, oh God.
I
need to refill the popcorn or something. Somebody do a run.
Yeah. Oh, unbelievable. Will Troon in less than a month. Can't wait to talk to you then.
All right, guys. Take care.
Will Haskett, PGA Tour Radio.
I think we're all the same here. None of us have seen young Sheldon. I've not seen a second of young Sheldon other than the
3 to
commercials.
4 minutes of it.
Yeah.
Can't say I've ever thought about binging young Sheldon.
I've seen Big Bang Theory. I've never seen young Sheldon at all.
Sure.
There you go.
Great stuff from Will. Thank you to him.
Rory, I don't think you care about these things, but the sports media usually does. Leaving without doing any press, and then he hit the gas a little too hard on the gravel, and he almost did a little kick back there.
Right, Scotty Scheffler giving him a high five on the way out. I don't love it. I'm a big believer, Andy, that you get paid millions of dollars, and part of your responsibility in wins and defeat is to stand up.
Go do 5 minutes of press after the match.
And I don't want to preach golf's a game of integrity, like that aspect of it. I would have liked to have seen that, but. To me, Andy, because, last year, very similar scene. Loses by 1 shot in the U.S. Open. What does he do? He does media. He shakes Wyndham Clark's hand.
Right.
I think what it tells me is the magnitude of the heartbreak. I mean, literally.
He was done.
I'm showing you a side-by-side right now, Andy, of him in the scoring booth and Bryson DeChambeau raking the bunker, holding the U.S. Open trophy, grinning as wide as I grinned when Tiger birdied 1, and now I'm showing the YouTube channel. When Tiger birdied 1 to start the U.S. Open on Thursday, again, I think the Pato Award, Joseph Newgard and analogy, it's Pato times 10. I mean, Will added in there more of the Marco Andretti, Sam Hornish Jr. I'd throw in J.R. Hildebrand in 11 of, wrecking on the 800th turn of the race. I mean, that's a little bit like missing the 3-footer on 18. And I'll go back to 16. I thought not making that putt, what it sent the roar through Pinehurst because Bryson had just missed the shorty on 15. And it told Bryson, I don't need to be full throttle attack. If he has to feel like he needs to make a birdie there late, does that impact Bryson in any way, shape, or form? Obviously, it gives Rory a little bit more margin for error down the stretch, but yes, to answer your question, I would have liked to have seen Rory do that, but it sounds like the Netflix cameras were in there. So whether he likes it or not, at some point, we're gonna get that raw emotion.
I know you saw it. I can't remember who did he play. Who did not Rory? Who did Who did Bryson play with? Pavon. Is that how you say the guy's name? I don't know.
Matthew.
I'm sure you know more about him than I do, given that I know nothing
confused about the sleeves
him.
On Mr.
Okay.
Pavon.
Well, they went in the cooler there. He and Pavone, and I thought they were getting a beer. But it was some sort of
fancy Dasani water bottle.
It was just some sort of fancy water / some sort of vitamin, replenish your body. But it looked like they were getting a 16-ounce silver bullet twist tab there. And I'm thinking that's exactly what Bryson needs right now. Is that?
And I felt like at one point Bryson was telling Pavon how great of a bunker shot it was for like the 13th time.
Yeah,
and
I'm
Pavon
sure he
was kind of like, all right, man, just sign the card.
We get it. Sign the card. You won the U.S. Open.
Now, not to put you two on the spot, but I think you two have admitted this before. At times, whether it's Paul Skeens or some others out there, have been known to do a scroll on the significant other of an individual or two. Have we done one with Bryson lately?
I have not done
one.
No,
should we?
But I can imagine
if I'm not mistaken, to bring this local.
Okay.
At one point, Bryson's significant other was an attendee and a participant on the Marion University golf team. Right here.
Okay.
In our neck of the woods.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Shout out to Cold Spring Road. Shout out to Coffin Golf Course. Shout out to Gardner Ritter High School. Right there.
Okay.
And so I don't know. I didn't see any significant other in the aftermath of the win yesterday. Feel free to.
I did not either.
Yeah, I didn't see any. But at one point, Bryson's significant other was a Marion University golfer. And folks, not to say that I've, walked around Marion's campus too often, but let me just say I don't think there's a lot of that sort of talent walking around Marion.
Okay, so I just went ahead and I Googled it, and a website by the name of golfmagic.com comes up with
very reputable.
Who is Bryson DeChambeau's girlfriend? Meet Lilia Schneider.
Oh.
Okay, so that's
so we got a name.
Golf Magic has given me the name Lilia Schneider.
Still together?
As far as I can see, and during the break, and I'm sure Mark and I will convene after the show, and we'll do some independent research on this. The only thing that we care about now is Lilia Schneider and Young Sheldon. Those are the only two things.
That's where we're at.
That's where we're at on a Monday.
Father's Day Monday. Will Haskett's answering questions about pregnancy in his household. This is where we at. Not to reveal my friend here on air, but he sent me this. Lilia's a smoke.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Is that an accurate statement based off what you two have witnessed?
It's confirmed. She's a marketing major set to graduate from Marion University in 2025.
Oh, wow. So I guess a COVID year maybe.
It's also why I never got into marketing.
Shout out to Steve Simmons, a great year for the Marion men's golf program.
Yeah.
On that, and no easy way to transition into a morning check down, but we will attempt it.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, let's start with your morning check down.
Boy, I just got a couple screenshots.
Yeah. Golfmagic.com. Again, that's where I went. It's the first thing that came up on the old search engine today. Yes, I am using the company's internet. 91-83 Fever winners last night over the Chicago Sky. 2 in a row, 3 out of 4 now. Winners are the Fever. Let me give you a couple different things from the game last night. Caitlin Clark was fantastic. Perhaps her best game as a pro thus far. 23 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds, played 37 minutes, shot the ball well, hit a couple of her big threes and everything else. Here's Clark post-game getting comfortable being in the WNBA.
I feel like I have got more comfortable over the course of these games. Like, what was this game? 15 for us tonight. So, still more than half a season left, and I already feel like we've grown, so much. So I think that's just like a positive for all of us to take away and continue to string some wins along. And, Coach has been saying, we just need to continue to take a step forward every single day. But, we don't have any time to go backwards. And I think tonight we took a really big step forward. So I'm proud of the group.
Yeah, so Clark was great. So that's for the game yesterday afternoon, and obviously some of the national stuff, and you'll see it even locally. Angel Reese had the missed block, which hits her right arm, just nails Caitlin Clark in the head. Clark goes down. It's a foul. It gets reviewed. It's upgraded to a flagrant 1. Here's head coach Christy Sides on that call.
I was really proud of how they all kept their composure. And the right call was made in that moment. Flagrant 1, 2 free throws in the ball. Just make the right call in those moments, and we can move forward. But when we don't make the right call in those moments, that's when there's a problem. And they made the right call tonight.
Hey, again, continued prayers for the voice of Christy Sides, but Aaliyah Boston has been very good here over the last week, easily the best stretch of her second season. And again, I thought Clark, arguably the best game of her career, and you combine those two, we haven't had that yet. More Boston, I think, than Clark, really. But I thought Caitlin made a couple big plays defensively, as crazy as that sounds, in icing that one yesterday afternoon. So we mentioned this 5-game stretch with Lynn Dunn last Wednesday when we had her on. So far, 2-0. Mystics on Wednesday night, and they were the worst team in the league. They've won a couple since
Halls,
then.
Lipton, Ricola, Gentlemen, Entertainers Secret. They should all be on
Bourbon.
Christy Seats. Yeah.
Anything for the voice.
Is it
Christy
Ricola or
Sides.
Ricola?
Ricola. I don't know. It's like that.
I always say it like the guy with the big horn
Isn't
in the
that Kenny
commercials. I think it was. I think it
might be.
I think it was Kenny Mayne.
On the diamond this weekend, again, we had great theater at the IHSAA State Baseball Finals. Do want to mention that. Shout out to is it Gavin Jackson? I want to make sure I got that name right. Of Providence with the no-no there. Bar Reeve, New Prairie, Providence, an unfortunate heartbreak for Mooresville. Hogan Denny, incredible in relief in that one, but they lost to Lake Central in the 4A. The Cubs can't win a series, and the Reds lost on a squeeze.
Mm-hmm.
But you got your Ellie shirt on.
Ellie
Garrison
scored
today?
on a pickoff move. They tried to pick him off on second. They threw it to the outfield, and Ellie just ran home. It was unbelievable.
What's funny is if you go back and watch that, the Brewers TV call, the announcer goes, "Uh-oh." Like, he knows.
Oh, he knew.
He knew if you throw that into center field, this guy's going to score from second base.
This is
and lo
not
and behold,
Jason
he did.
Giambi on second.
No, it's not. That Mark Teixeira running down 90 feet or whatever.
The Jumbo Shrimp had the best of the Indians yesterday, issues in scoring runs. But at home this week, Mark, you going to head out? Iowa Cubs in town.
I think so. I think we will finally be out there. We haven't been out there since Bluey and Bingo were out there, and we were there for like 2.5 hours after the game ended.
Maybe young Sheldon will be out there.
He might draw a crowd. I don't know. But, yeah, I think we are going to finally break. The temperature's going to be soaring, but, yeah, I think we're going to get out there.
It's going to be 95 degrees.
A couple beer bats will do the trick.
Game 5 tonight, 8:30. Game 5 for the Stanley Cup coming up tomorrow night. So we had Game 4s survive for another day, at least for Dallas and Edmonton, and both of those blowouts. 38-point win by Dallas, and then Edmonton winning 8-1 over Florida in that one. So again, Game 5 from the Garden tonight, 6.5-point favorite.
Yeah, reminder, Game 5 tonight, we'll have it on the air. 7:30 tonight, 8:30 tip-off. You can catch that on the Fan. And then tomorrow night after trackside, we'll have the NHL game as well. So we might have NBA Finals tonight, a champion crowned, NHL Finals tomorrow night crowned right here on the Fan. Let's take a break. We'll come back Monday. We keep it going until 10 o'clock, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
This hour of The Fan is
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
30 years ago tonight. Does that ring a bell at all?
Oh, 30 years ago tonight.
I've received a good amount of education on certainly one of the more infamous days, I'd say, frankly, in our nation's history. I don't know if that's too big to say, but based off of 30 for 30.
Oh, goodness. And I've seen like 3 this morning. Like this happened. Like Charles Barkley got traded on this day in sports history, but I'm sure that's not what you're talking about.
Tom Brokaw interrupting Game 5 of the NBA Finals.
There's a white Ford Bronco on the highway. We're going to go to this live.
Ford Bronco. That's a pretty good Brokaw.
Thank you.
By Mark Dykton.
This is
right
on the
there.
fly.
Yeah, that 30 for 30. I mean, I was
O.J.
5
Simpson, the
years
Heisman
old
winner.
on June 17th, 1994. So obviously I was, I don't know if I was consuming young Sheldon yet either from a Will Haskett standpoint there. But, yeah, certainly quite the night. Now, that 30 for 30, remember, was not it was obviously very O.J. focused. But you also had the World Cup kicking off that day in Chicago.
It was unbelievable.
You had, I think, Arnold Palmer playing the final round of his U.S. Open career. Again, Game 5 of the finals, of course. Just a wild day.
Was that the longest 30 for 30? It wasn't like 5 episodes. It was like 10 hours total. It was 5 episodes, 2 hours each. Wasn't that OJ Made in America?
Well, I think it was 2 separate. You had OJ Made in America, then I think there was a separate 30 for 30 just on June 17th, 1994.
Just on that day,
yeah.
I think KB's right.
Yeah, that's what it was.
All of that unfolded there on that end.
Oh, goodness. Hey, I wanted to mention this since we've talked a lot of golf. Now, we have the Fan on the Back 9, the golf tournament. It's all presented by Franciscan
We're like
Health.
a month away, right?
Yeah, it's coming up in like literally about a month here. Thursday, July 18th. Again, tickets are on sale right now. 1075thefan.com. It's at Back 9. Did it last year. It's actually one of my first times. I was still not even on the air, right? I think it was my first week literally on the job, and it was great seeing people then, and cannot wait to see people now. Again, it's all going to start Thursday, July 18th at 11 a.m. check-in. It's all going to kick off at noon. Since it's at the beautiful facility there, the Back 9, the event's going to take place rain or shine. So you need to know that. JMV is going to be there. Query and Company are going to be there. I know we'll be there. We'll be done with our show. So we're going to be meandering
we'll be partying.
and eating and drinking and being merry and everything like that. But
speaking of the weather, you will not get, if it's raining, you will not get wet because it's all covered up.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And they have, the AC, the fans that are blowing and everything else. So it's a real comfortable place. It's an awesome place. We appreciate Back 9 Golf and Entertainment. Again, that's coming up Thursday, July 18th, 1075thefan.com for tickets. The reason I bring that up is when I was gone, I had a little birdie reach out to me.
Oh.
And this individual did not, and I don't even truly know, did not know that you are a well-accomplished golfer. Now, I don't know how well-accomplished you are as a golfer.
Not very. I can get the ball airborne. Like in the air.
Well, you're a good golfer. You played in high school. You're a good golfer.
You're a ringer from everybody that tells us.
Not a frequent dribbler like in the British Open. A little more airborne.
Okay. Well, the reason I bring it up is I had an individual reach out and maybe kind of thought that this was a competition going on at Back 9.
Well, it is kind of, right?
Well, it is, but
it's what you want it to be, I guess.
He thought I needed somebody to represent myself. Because I'm not a golfer.
Now we're back to OJ here.
Well, he extended his services and wanted to come after Kevin Bowen.
Oh,
and this individual is a local pro in the area. So
do we have a name?
I'm seeing exactly if he's going to sign up and if I'm going to keep my ringer to myself or if I'm going to say who it is publicly. But I might have a ringer for this event coming up in a month. How about that?
I would not have pegged you as that.
Me either. But I'm not a golfer, so I needed somebody, if there's any sort of competition aspect to come and be my, white knight, if you will.
Tournament style game.
Patrick Rogers coming up to the Back 9,
right? Tournament style. Yeah, you got Adam Schenk that we finally got.
There he is.
Tournament style games will take place, but at the same, Matthew texted me during the break. Curious about, hey, I don't swing a golf club, but you can still come there and have a. The nice thing about Back 9, especially when you get on like the elevated levels, you just hit it, and based off the elevation, it naturally goes somewhere.
It looks pretty good, yeah.
And maybe you'll hit the picker cart.
And sometimes you could be like, because there's different versions of the games you can play. So you can just I mean, you could just shoot it and launch it as far as you want, or you can be doing like, a chip game and you try to like get it certain. So if you screw up, you can be like, I'm playing the chip game.
And I also love
just trying to go 50 yards.
The
No big
two
deal.
massive TV screens they have in the back there. So it's cool to go there when there's a sporting event on there. Will you tonight? I'll be totally honest with you. I think the Sweeney household will be in the same boat. As much as we will consume Game 5, when Lily King gets in the starters block tonight, we will be 1,000% on the swimming final tonight. She's in the final.
What time is she on? Do we know?
What has it been, like 8 to? I feel like it's a little longer tonight, like 8 to 9:30 maybe.
Yeah,
is the broadcast.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
She is the number 1 seed in the 100-meter breaststroke final. So again, she will participate in the 200-meter later this week. But tonight it is the finals for that, and again needs to win or finish second in all likelihood. To make her third Olympics. She's won 5 medals, 2 golds in Rio. We remember the wagging of the finger, just legendary stuff from the one and only Lily King. She's going to join us coming up on the show next week, and hopefully we'll be talking about her punching her ticket at the age of 27. By all accounts, it sounds like this is it for her. She will not attempt to qualify when the Olympic Games go to LA in 2028. So a big, big one tonight over at Lucas Oil Stadium for Lily King.
9 different events tonight. 9 different ones.
Yeah, the finals are at 8 o'clock tonight. All the prelim stuff is obviously online, but it's also 6 o'clock, I think, on the USA Network and everything else. So you are the only you're the only youngster to come from Carmel without a swimming medal at some point
much
in your life.
I mean,
how does that feel?
Humbling. Well, Carmel can humble you in a lot of ways, to be honest with you. There was one final the other night. I think it might have been men's freestyle, where literally, I think it was the 3rd and the 4th lane were, well, it might have been the 3rd and the 6th. 3 of the 4 lanes were Carmel Fishers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm like, this is the U.S. Olympic swim trials.
I know.
And we have a Hamilton County 3 out of the 4 lanes. And shout out to Aaron Shackle from Carmel, 19-year-old Olympian. Came home from school from Cal earlier this year and wanted to make sure his focus was solely on qualifying for these Olympics, and he did that. I don't know if you guys saw the Katie Ledecky quote from over the weekend as well. She mentioned, again, Katie Ledecky, the Michael Phelps of women's swimming.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to describe her, but she said that she was shaking on the starting block. I mean, this is Katie Ledecky, one of the most decorated Olympians of all time, shaking on the starting block during a prelim because of the crowd noise. She was and this is a prelim. So, again, the finals are at night. The prelims are during the day. They had 17,000 people in the building for one of the prelims over the weekend, and she could not believe the amount of crowd noise. She was nervous about a false start because it was such, I guess, kind of a raucous environment in there. So, by all accounts, it's been a great start from an atmosphere environment standpoint. And I think sometimes, Andy, when you have these types of events, the theater of it all can be really cool, but the logistics of it, the athletes hate because, whatever, you've had to, drum up some, out of body experience to create the venue that it doesn't make sense for them logistically at all from a training and a routine standpoint. And the athletes love it. I mean, they're like, no, everything's centrally located. You've got the pools on the other side of the curtain.
There hasn't been some issue.
No.
Knock on wood. There hasn't been an issue. It's been great.
Of course, we're biased, but it sounds like everything has gone really, really according to plan so far.
Yeah, I know last week you guys had Nicole Auerbach on. We'll try to get at least Pat Forty. I know the national media is in town. So many of them were at the Fever game yesterday afternoon, and then obviously the swimming at night. So again, that's going to be all tonight on NBC at 8 o'clock. Let's take a break on the other end. We'll wrap up hour number 2. Tony East joins us coming up in 10 minutes.
Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent our
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Tony East going to join us in about 5 minutes. Plenty to get to, not only Pacers related, but Fever as well. Did you guys see, I think this was late Friday, Mark, I know you and I mentioned it last week, a pending commitment for one Eugene Hilton, the son of T.Y. Hilton.
Yep.
Andy, you happen to see where he is off to?
I did not see this. I know the offers. We talked about it. Where's he going?
All right, let me give you the list. Georgia, Miami, Wisconsin, Purdue, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Kansas. I would say
where'd you guess he went?
Quite the interesting list there.
I was going to guess Ole Miss. I actually don't know. Where's he going?
Ole
Wisconsin?
Miss, great track record with wideouts there. He is off to Badgerland.
Good for him.
Chris Ballard, alma mater. Now, this is not, I feel like when I see kids commit to Wisconsin, I'm like, oh, yeah, are they ready to run the football? I'm like, wait, Luke Fickell's there now.
Fickell's there.
I don't think they're going to Paul Kristen, Barry Alvarez it up there. I believe Kyle Nedrup had this in his story that, big connection there with the receivers coach who had come from Arkansas. So Eugene Hilton off to Wisconsin. Hard to say no to Georgia and Ole Miss, right?
It really is. And the weather, but you're exactly right. I had to check myself because I was going to make the Wisconsin joke. Oh, is he a blocking wide receiver? I was going to make the Wisconsin joke, but Fickell is there now, so it's totally different. Or you're thinking it's going to be different than it was with Paul Christ and company. Of course, then Chris Ballard, you mentioned him. No wonder he's always drafting offensive linemen. All the jokes are there.
And Ballard has always been a huge fan of Fickell. That kind of dates back to Cincinnati. I remember when, obviously, they moved on from Frank Reich. It was like, okay, if there was any sort of college coach, remember Matt Rule interviewed way back when Frank Reich ended up getting hired in the 2018. I thought to myself, Fickell has been a name. I feel like he's kind of on like the Pat Fitzgerald at one point of like, possible college guy that could make the jump to the NFL that's not named Saban and Harbaugh and Urban and all of that. Eugene Hilton, one more year at Zionsville, then off to Wisconsin.
I like his wide range of college choices.
Very wide range.
I appreciate it.
It really is. But by the way, that would have went over well. Luke Fickell coming from Cincinnati to the Indianapolis Colts. That would have given you some hits on the old website, 1075thefan.com. Yeah, I don't know. Did you see just one quick thing on college football? This has been put out there by 3 or 4 different entities that a Colorado players are saying that Coach Prime made them go to a concert because Shedeur Sanders was rapping at that concert. Have you guys seen this at all? That it wasn't like, hey,
I love Colorado.
If you really could go, it would be great to support your starting quarterback. This is a mandatory team function, right? You can't treat it like Aaron Rodgers treated the New York Jets last week. Boy, Mark had to love that story.
God.
How much did Mark want to talk about that story last week?
I feel like I probably tweeted about it. I was like, the guy who said he didn't want any distractions and want to talk football is the distraction. That's always good. That's a good team bonding activity.
From Aaron Rodgers? Now, you do have a Trevor Lawrence thought we wanted to get to at some point?
Well, I don't know if we have time today. We don't have time today.
But we can
but
get to
Trevor
it.
Lawrence got his. I wonder how many of these NFL teams are just so strapped with, we have to pay our quarterback.
Oh, sure.
And we have to.
Or else.
And my take was going to be, and we'll do this another day, is I don't think Anthony Richardson's going to be that. Like Anthony Richardson, you're going to know, hey, we're going to want to pay this guy or we're not going to want to pay this guy. Like I think he is going to be very black or white with that.
Or else. Ryan Tannehill for years had it with Miami.
There's a bunch of quarterbacks. The Giants just had to
Kirk
do it with
Cousins
Daniel Jones.
Is annual.
Kirk Cousins and Trevor Lawrence, obviously. May fit that mold as well. All right, Tony East, tons of Pacers, tons of Fever. What does he think of the Fever playing much better basketball as of late? We'll ask him. Tony East joins us next here on The Fan on a Monday.
Doc, I don't know what's wrong with me.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Again, happy belated Father's Day to all the dads out there. The human being that decided to put the U.S. Open on Father's Day Sunday should build a statue outside of the United States Golf Association for whoever that person is. Thank you to that. Great drama yesterday from Pinehurst number 2. Pretty good drama over at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Fever now have their first win streak of the season. We'll get to that with Tony East here in a second. But I want to begin with Friday. I believe Tony was out there. Tony East joins us now. Tony, were you at the Tyrese Haliburton court thing, renovating that court over there by the fairgrounds?
Yes, I was. I was there and at his camp this weekend.
Injury update. Sounds like Friday was a big day on the checklist, and he's about to ramp it up here pretty soon before Team USA begins.
He's running full speed, he said, for the first time since getting her in the playoffs, which admittedly made me laugh because we were all talking during the playoffs, like, I wonder if he can play. 3 weeks later, he is now running full speed. So, no, he could not have played in the postseason. But, yeah, that's, of course, good for him and good for his prospects to play in the Olympics. And I don't think camp starts for Team USA for another, 2.5 weeks. So good for his recovery timeline. And he gets another vacation in, and I think he needs the rest just as much as he needs the rehab. So good news on Haliburton.
I love the back-to-back vacations from Tyrese Haliburton. I appreciate that.
Sounds like a radio host in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, how about that? I'm loving what I'm hearing there. How much do you think he plays Team USA? If I made you pick an over/under minutes-wise, and in some of these games, obviously, Tony, we know Team USA can run away, right? And they can win by 30, 40, 50 points. But that's not going to be every game, and he'll be coming off the bench. What do you think he's 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 14 minutes? What do you think his average will be over those couple weeks?
Yeah, I think, Steph and Drew are going to be the big minute guards. So wherever he sneaks in behind them, him and Booker will be competing for all the rest. So I can't imagine he's playing more than maybe 10 to 15 minutes a game as the backup one, but it might depend on, like you said, if they're up 40 and 10 minutes every game, then he can soak up a lot more because it's weird with when the team is so good like this, does it really matter if you have a point guard out there? Like you have LeBron, you have Tatum, you have KD, someone good can have the ball even if it's not a point guard. So I'll be curious how much he plays. I think it's just more about him being there.
Tony East, Locked On Pacers, SI.com is the latest Locked On Pacers, a handful of draft prospects to look at. Again, Indiana drafting right now 3 times in round 2, 36, their highest of those picks. Tony, I know second-round picks, people like to poke fun at them a lot. The magnitude of them can vary, certainly. What do the Pacers need out of this draft?
What do they actually need? Immediately? Not anything. But what they should be, or at least the reason I think they should try to pick at 36 or even shuffle up to 31 or something if they can is just, it's so obvious to, I think, a lot of people looking at the Pacers team and the structure of the assets that they have that their next big move will likely involve young players, trading away 1 or 2 or even 3 of their young core for something awesome, and then having that thing be with Siakam and Haliburton and go from there. Well, if you do that, and maybe that trade involves, some combination of Jarris Walker, Ben Mathurin, Ben Scheffler, Andrew Nembhard, whoever, you still need some young, cheap talent on your team to develop. Like Ben Shepherd being on a rookie deal and being in your rotation in the postseason is massive for team-building purposes, right? So I think if you can try to get something that in 2 or 3 years is playing or is valuable for you at 36, that just to have some more in the youth pipeline, that does have value, even though it's a bad draft. So I can't say there's a specific position. Like right now, whoever they pick just isn't going to play. They don't have minutes available. So it's not like there's a specific position I feel like they need to be targeting. You can never go wrong getting more wings in the current NBA. But I do think there is some value, especially with their 2026 first out the door, of trying to get the best thing you can this year. And whether that's at 36, a little higher, a little lower, whatever, I think that does make sense. So I'll be curious how they tackle that, right? They've had a lot of older, more experienced prospects in for their workouts for this draft process so far. That may not mean anything. It's just kind of been a pattern. So I'm curious what they're looking at, but I think that does make a lot of sense, just kind of given where they're headed, at least with their team-building process.
Tony East with us, SI.com, Locked On Pacers podcast. He joins us here on the Payless Liquors hotline on a Monday. Tony, I want to go right there. I was noticing, they brought in guys that have some college experience in on these visits. Does any name stand out of someone they've brought in and thought, that maybe that made you raise your eyebrows a little bit?
You just look kind of at the mock draft landscape, or kind of look back at the college season. Like, I think the best guys in terms of the kind of consensuses that they've brought in are like Harrison Ingram from North Carolina. I think is pretty high on a lot of these boards. Dylan Jones from Weber State's in the 40s on a lot of these boards. I can't remember that. AJ Mitchell's been in the 40s, but no one that leaps off the page is like, oh, this guy clearly stands out as the best prospect they've brought in so far. But I think that they're going to have trouble with that part of the process because of stuff I've already said, right? They don't have minutes to really offer anybody they pick, and they're picking so late in the draft. Like, if you have a guy who's probably going to go in the first round, you're probably not trying to work out for the Pacers, right? You're trying to go, steer them somewhere else, which is fine. If you're the Pacers, you got to work with those hurdles anyway. But it's going to be, if there's someone awesome or somebody who thinks they can get minutes somewhere, they may not want to do that. So I think that part of it is twofold, that they actually do want to look at these guys and they have experience, and that matters to the Pacers now that they're on a winning track instead of a developing track. But at the same time, it's the prospects who have to figure out where they want to go and where they want to work out. So I think that theme does matter, but I also think it's part of just the reality of their draft situation.
Again, Tony East, locked on PacersSI.com, with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Tony, when the finals come to an end, as early as tonight, we could get some, I guess, quick-ish traction on where things are. Pacers, Pascal Siakam, extension-wise. Anything you are curious about with length, value, or are you just in the camp of foregone conclusion? And feel free to confirm the numbers of what that would be. Do you just feel like that's where it's going to be and we can just move on with the rest of the offseason?
Yeah, I do think because if they can offer more per year and more years, I think people have kind of come to grips with what that looks like. But the fact that it can be more per year, I guess, means there could be some wiggle room. Like the most he could get per year extended over a 5-year deal with another team would be like $228 million, but the Pacers can offer closer to $244. So does that $16 million gap give them some sort of room to negotiate or wiggle room? Maybe. They're still offering more than any team could per year. And, if you're Siakam and you think about the next 5 years of your career, like if you sign a great 4-year deal with someone else and play awesome the whole time, like how are you maximizing your earnings? Well, that would be a way to do it. It's still getting more than you could get from someone else, even if it's not necessarily your max with the Pacers. But that said, like we're talking about a thin margin at that point over a huge contract. So it seems like if he can even threaten or say, hey, I've got an offer from this other team, it'll just be a max and it's over, because that's far better than losing him if you're the Pacers. So kind of seems simple, but maybe there's a tiny bit of room on the back end. I still think at his age and the way this is trending, the thing that most makes sense is just get it over with 5 years quickly. But maybe he wants something else. Maybe the Pacers try to negotiate a little bit. It seems kind of simple to me, though.
Tony East with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Last one on the Pacers, and then we can get on to the Fever, and they've won a couple in a row, and I believe, 3 out of 4 over the last week or so. We had you on a couple weeks ago, and even after we had you on, Tony, I remember we talked about how much you liked Andrew Nembhard, and you were very forceful on his play and his spot with the team and getting some more money and everything else. And coming up in about a month or so, on July 22nd, they're going to be able to actually sign him, if they wanted to his max deal of about $78.5 million, if I'm not mistaken. In 2025, you could really see that number grow. What ultimately this offseason do you think they do with Andrew Nembhard? Anything?
I mean, if I'm them, I'm trying to sign him to that, certainly. As I think I said that a few weeks ago here, like just the way the cap is rising and the speed it's rising, getting a guy in at that value who is a starter for sure, and at worst, even with your team-building trajectory, a very good guard makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, he's one of their best 3 defenders already and clearly showed that he can ascend and have some lead ball handling responsibilities if need be. And I think really good starters are going to cost more than that very soon, given the way the league is trending. And I'm obviously, as you said, very high on him as a player. So if I'm the Pacers, I'm trying to do it right now. And I think that they can at least try some bit of trying to get it across the line, just because they can make him be a restricted free agent next summer, and that could limit his market unless he was unrestricted. But if you're Andrew Nembhard, you might want to be an unrestricted free agent. So you might want a shorter extension, for example, or you might want a player option on an extension or something like that, right? So there's a lot of factors that are tricky. The mid-level exception is going to keep growing and growing at a crazy rate that might make it worth it for him to wait too. So the more I've thought about it, the more I've thought that a shorter extension does make some sense for him. Maybe not as much the Pacers. So I'll be curious how those negotiations go, because if I'm the Pacers, I'm offering 4 years, whatever it's going to be. I think it might end up closer to 80, like immediately. And I know that a lot of people might think that's an unpopular take, but get it done and lock him up for a while, because he's very good, but he's got his own factors to consider in terms of his long-term earnings.
He is Tony East. Again, you can find his work, Locked On Pacers. Great listen this morning on some draft prospects to keep an eye on as we reach the end of round one, coming up a week from, I guess that would be Wednesday into Thursday. One more on the Pacers front before we switch gears to Fever from me. Obi Toppin and the debate there on the restricted free agency for him. How much of that decision do you think is based on how they view Jarris Walker?
It's got to be some, right? And that's why I think Obi's probably the most interesting free agent to me, because him coming back would at least signal to me that they have to think about some other change in some way, because they'd have 11 guys who you'd argue you would like to see play next year if they re-sign Obi, and that's too many. So how does that work? Does that mean they re-sign Obi and he plays the 5 next year off the bench, and then Jarris can play the 4, but then one of Jalen Smith or Isaiah Jackson isn't playing? Does that mean Jarris Walker's not playing? Does that mean Jarris Walker's playing the 3 and Ben Shepherd's not playing, right? They're like, someone has to not. It's just how it's going to work with the minutes. But I think in the Pacers situation, in the market they're in, you can't lose player rights if they're a good player with positive value, and Obi Toppin's a good player with positive value. So I think they probably should still try to keep him, even with the Jarris thought in play of, like, he's got to play eventually, right? They've said they're high on him. He did show flashes last year. There's a reason he went top 10 in a good draft. But how they get him those minutes, it's harder if Obi's on their team, right? So there are a lot of competing goals there, and they might have to shift some other positions and players around to make it all work. But he has to be part of the thinking there. Like, if some other team comes in and offers Obi Toppin way more than they expected they'd have to pay him this year, maybe they're okay with letting him walk in the name of letting Jarris play next year. And, that might make the team worse in the immediate. Probably would. But in the name of the long-term goals of the Pacers, they might have to grit their teeth and be okay with that. And, that's probably the most interesting factor of their offseason to me, is how do they handle Obi Toppin within the context of they need to play Jarris, but they're also trying to win. So those are kind of competing goals that still they both want to accomplish this summer.
Tony East with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. From the Pacers to the Fever, they won a couple in a row. You look at beating the Sky last night, 3 out of 4 for Caitlin Clark and company. I thought after the game, she talked about improvement. She's feeling better. Christy Sides talked about seeing improvement within the team. They're getting this time to practice after such a difficult first 3-4 weeks of the season or so, which I guess recently here, Tony, what improvement do you consider to be tangible that you watch them and say, oh, yeah, they're better at this, they're better at that, they're becoming a better basketball team?
Their offense looks great. And last night, or yesterday, whatever, was at noon. And isn't that a sports thing we all do? We always say last night, no matter what time the game started. Yesterday specifically was the first time all season that all of their best offensive talents were all clicking in the same game, which I thought was noteworthy. Clark, people said it was her most complete game of the season. I might debate with her first Mystics game, but not a big deal. 23 and 9 for her. Kelsey Mitchell got it going with 17. Alyssa Smith had 15, and a lot of those were huge points in the fourth quarter. And Aaliyah Boston's been a terror these last couple of weeks. She had 19 and 14, clutch and 1. Right, that was the first game that all 4 of them really all clicked at the same time. Right, they got Christy Wallace, their 5th starter, didn't score. Right, Katie Lou Samuelson had a nice run of threes, but that was pretty much it in terms of scoring from other players. But the fact that they got all 4 of those 4 to click at the same time, I think is huge, and that is where their growth and improvement has come. Is you've seen some games where playing faster and playing through Clark has been the way to go. Right, when they beat Washington in D.C. on June 7th, she had 30, and that was the way to go. When they beat the Dream on Thursday, they played slow. They played through Aaliyah a little more. Aaliyah had a career high. That's what they needed to do, and it worked. So I think blending those styles and blending those talents has been where they look better, and it's made their offense look really potent. I believe I saw their offensive rating is top 3 in the league in these last 5 games. I have to look that up myself off the top of my head, but there was over 100 offensive rating in those games, which is fantastic in the W. And I'm trying to pull it up while I'm talking, which is not going well at the moment. But that has been where I think they've clicked the most. Their defense still certainly needs a lot of work, still worst in the league, but they're scoring enough to get over that, and now they're winning some games. They look like more like the team I thought they would this season.
Multitasker Tony East with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Tony, if you could snap your fingers and add a skill set to this Fever team, what would that be?
Man, I mean, it's so natural to say a 3-and-D kind of player, right? Like, before the season, the thought was Katie Lou Samuelson would beat that between Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark, and even with Kelsey Mitchell in there. And she's definitely been rounding into form. Like I just said, she had some huge threes against this guy yesterday, but she even said it. Like, I had to ask her about it after they beat Atlanta. She said it's just she missed last season. She had a child. She said, like, yeah, training camp was harder than I expected, right? So she's been good and rounding into form, certainly, but a year off does change the player you can be. And so I think these last couple of games of them winning 3 or 4, her and Lexi Hall playing better shows that, like, a high-level 3-and-D player, one that can handle a little bit, even would be really good for them. Like, Nia Coffey on the Dream has been a player that I've said for years would be, like, the absolute perfect fit with what the Fever are building or trying to build. And it's hard to get those players in the W just like it is, in the NBA. But that's kind of what they need. They have enough ball handling, clearly. They have good post play. They just haven't been shooting to the extent that I think they would like to this year. Even as their offense kind of improves, they're still searching for a little more efficiency on that end. And I think the other thing would be just like some caretakers. They can get turnovers from Caitlin. She's going to have the ball up, but they have too many turnovers as a team. And so in general, the reserve guards, their wings who do handle it, need to take care of it a little more.
Tony, I'm contractually obligated to ask you about the Reese foul on Caitlin Clark. We can't go 15 minutes here and not talk about it.
Andy, you're cutting out. Uh-oh.
There you go. What did you make of it, the conversation? Clark saying the right things, Angel Reese saying the wrong things after the game, which is not surprising.
Yeah, I can't sigh loud enough, man. I had Father's Day plans yesterday, so I didn't watch the game when it happened. I watched it later. But I was texting people, like media pals. I was like, hey, they're playing this guy again. Text me if anything important or, like, dramatic happens, right? And someone said, hard foul at Angel, flagrant on Caitlin. And I just sent them a crying emoji. So I was like, tomorrow's going to suck, right? Like, this is going to be terrible.
That's so well said.
You can see on the replay that Angel's looking at the ball, right? She's trying to make a basketball play and doesn't. So it's a flagrant, and that's it. And I think they both said that in their post-game pressers before the rest of the stuff they said, which was, yes, that was a basketball play that happens to be a flagrant. That's it. That's it, right? That happens all the time. Alyssa Thomas fouled Angel Reese in the same way and got ejected for it earlier this season. But, of course, it's turned into more because Angel said the thing about the special whistle or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And, I get why she said that. The Fever were asking about officiating and whistles after the first 5 games of the season, so I bet other teams heard that and knew that something like this would be coming potentially. So does this merit the debate it's going to get today? Should Deadline Hollywood be writing about Angel Reese fouling Caitlin Clark? No, absolutely not. Do I get why it's going to be a thing? Yes, but it was a normal basketball play that just happened to be the 2 most high-profile athletes in the league, and here we are talking about it right now.
Tony, let's end with a tease. I enjoyed the listen this morning. Again, you guys breaking down a handful of draft prospects to keep an eye on, maybe a name that someone would find and listening to that podcast?
I really like Dylan Jones from Weber State. He did work out for the Pacers. He's like a point center who's kind of a forward at the same time. He can really pass it for his size, and I think that's a really valuable skill to the Pacers. We've heard them talk about the pace and tempo of these workouts compared to the other ones. And so I think a guy who can fit in their system is going to be important to the Pacers this year. He's one I really like, like a 6'6", wing-ish, passer-ish, score-ish type. And I will forever be infatuated by Ryan Dunn because that dude blocks or steals everything around him, even though his offensive game is a work in progress, to say the least.
Is he the Virginia kid?
He is. Yeah.
He is.
Yeah, he was. They were really high on him, I thought, earlier in the season. Go ahead.
3 blocks per game as a wing, almost 2 steals per game. Don't look at his 3-point percentage or free throw percentage. Just look at those 2 numbers.
Tony, I say this,
especially for this team.
Well, I say this knowing that Rick Carlisle is the big Virginia guy. I worked with a guy who is a very pretentious back in the day Virginia fan, and while their defense and they've done a lot of winning, I don't know. You look at a guy who comes from, I hate to say this, Virginia. I just feel like Rick Carlisle and company would be able to unleash an offensive game from him. I just feel that with Dunn. If they end up taking him.
I wonder with any prospect, like, what is the Haliburton bump really worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, every player shoots like 4 or 5% better when he's on the floor. So, like, is that alone just enough to make him good? But at the same time, how much would Ryan Dunn really share the court with Tyrese Haliburton early in his career, right? So it's on some hands I would like to see it. I'm pretty high on him in general, just because if you can defend like that, that means you can read the game. On the other hand, you got to make shots, and he did not do that.
Tony, as always, outstanding, sir. Hope all is well.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Tony East, Payless Liquors Hotline. That comment right there. Haliburton raises others offensively. We obviously never say that about Haliburton defensively, and I think that's part of where kind of my calling card has always been. This dates back to the Siakam trade, the OG Anunoby rumors, Andy, all of that. He can raise ships offensively. I mean, look at Toppin's numbers this year. Look at Turner's numbers. Like,
yeah, all these guys.
It's amazing how, to Tony's point, these guys see their offensive games rise, but then defensively, that obviously can't be said. So that's where the defensive emphasis, and this is a debate we had last week, Andy, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as the week moves along, but that's where the Obi Toppin thing I think is fascinating to me, because unlike Siakam, it seems, the Toppin one is the real decision of the offseason. It's not Siakam money, but it's the most debatable one. I see a team out there offering Toppin big money and a starting job. That's not going to be necessarily here in Indiana. If you view Jarris Walker as potentially close to being ready,
you go with Jarris Walker.
So I just think that puzzle piece, that decision this offseason will be really interesting to watch.
Listen, I'm with you, but it's not even that. It's the fact of, if Obi is back, at some point,
is it Redshirt 2.0
for Jarris?
That's
what I'm saying. Is Jarris Walker going to be a top 10 pick who is not going to see legitimate NBA time until maybe his third year in the league? I mean, really? Are we going to go down that road? That's not something that we see. And the reason I asked, listen, just going back to my question about it's Ryan, is it not Ryan Dunn?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always think of Ryan Dunn,
Virginia,
who unfortunately passed away. He was part of Jackass. I know Mark was thinking of that. So listen, Virginia is so bad offensively. I mean, the Pacers, I may do this tonight or during the break or something. How many quarters did the Pacers have that would outscore Virginia basketball the entire game? I bet they did it, KB. I'm not kidding. They would score under 50 points in a game.
No, they have in the playing game. Wasn't it 44 in the playing game?
Dude, we joked about it, but it's real. It's like, yes, he can defend and all those things. I just happen to think the way I view the Pacers and Rick Carlisle, if the kid's got something, if the guy's got something there offensively, I think Rick Carlisle, the Pacers, and being on the floor in this offense, and, yes, would he ever be on the floor with Tyrese Haliburton, but being in the system and with Haliburton, to me, can make you look better. I want to go back as well. I agree that Siakam, the Obi stuff, this franchise has to make a decision here, potentially this offseason, KB, if they're going to pay over $17 million a year to Andrew Nembhard. And boy, that is buying in a lot on what Nembhard did, especially in the playoffs. And you know me, I'm just not quite there yet with him. But I feel like that's something that if we woke up here in a month and a half and you saw that there was some sort of extension done. Now, it might be a shorter extension so he can hit the market again a little bit sooner. He talked about that. But we could be sitting here at least in 2025 with the conversation that Andrew Nembhard is a guy making north of $17 million per year. That's pretty staggering, is it not?
Well, and again, I think the debate so often has to come back to with Nembhard is that financial number, is that as a two guard or as a point guard? Because here...
Is he a starter?
I want to make clear on Nembhard, it's unfair just to label him as a two guard. So I know I just said that, but he obviously has some position versatility for you. And I don't compare this to Sabonis and Turner at all from a handful of years ago when you had to move one of them. No one could play the four out of that duo. And obviously look at how each of their careers have flourished since. It's worked out quite nicely. I don't view Nembhard in the same light, but obviously Haliburton is going to dominate the ball as he should in that starting unit. So Tony East has been extremely high and probably carries a big-time Nembhard flag of retain, and he's a great player and all of those things. I'm much more of you have to listen to offers. We didn't have the chance maybe to get with Tony on it, and we'll certainly have him on, I think, before the offseason really ramps up once free agency begins. But in my opinion, that's why you have to listen. to the Nembhard stuff because it's a bit of a logjam. You know, if we start to play out the depth chart thing, Mathurin's coming back. Well, didn't Chad Buchanan say to JMV, we look at Jarris Walker maybe as more of a wing? Okay, if he's more of a wing, then now all of a sudden it's Neesmith and it's Shepard and it's Mathurin and it's Walker. Where are all the minutes going to be? It's a great problem to have. But to improve this roster moving forward, this is not the annual conversation that we've had in years past of, here's your lottery pick, here's your lottery pick, here's your lottery pick. Or here's a bunch of cap space, no. Now it's, to really improve it, you might have to sacrifice something on your roster to hope it becomes a win-win for multiple teams. That's scary, and I get that there is hesitancy to do that, and not everything's going to look like the Kings-Pacers trade, but that's part of taking your team from, whatever, tier 3 to tier 2 or tier 1, however you want to describe it.
Yeah, there's layers to this, right? Like finding a superstar, being able to acquire and probably here sooner rather than later sign a guy like Siakam to have those two superstars, and then then it's like fine tuning, right? You mentioned going from tier 3 to tier 2 or tier 2 to tier 1 in the NBA. That fine tuning is not easy to do. Look at like a team like Philadelphia. They've been trying to find the right mix and the fine-tuning to go with Joel Embiid for the last several years, and they may have found it with Maxey a little bit, but now you got to fine-tune the rest of the roster, and that's not difficult. There's at least the Pacers have options, and the options you feel pretty good about, and the backup options you also, like I say stuck, but if you are stuck with Andrew Nembhard, he has proven to be a good ascending player.
Well, I think one thing that helps the Pacers that, like, let's just use Milwaukee as an example. Milwaukee's improvement is not internal young guys developing. Milwaukee's got to hope that they just stay healthy. And that is enough. Like, I mean, they have the oldest starting lineup in the entire NBA. Whereas the Pacers' improvement, while they might not have Milwaukee's potency, as a starting lineup, the Pacers can improve internally because, again, they do have these young guys. I mean, as much as we sit there and talk about Mathurin and Jarris Walker, I mean, look at the ages of Aaron Neesmith, of Andrew Nembhard. I mean, this year was really the first year Aaron Neesmith's ever gotten consistent starting clock. Do you see more growth in his game? Nembhard, you could make the argument maybe a little bit more of a finish guy just because he did play, 4 years in college and things like that. But still, he would fall on the younger side of the category. So it's just a new conversation. It's a new and it's a good conversation. And I get why, people that are very team run it back are hesitant to do anything else. But to me, it's also a great opportunity to listen to some trade-offs.
No, you got to be, listen, the Pacers got to where they are by being bold. By making the move to go get Tyrese Haliburton and then making the move in the middle of a season, right? And going to get a guy like Pascal Siakam, those are bold moves.
Oh, certainly.
They have made their hay on making bold moves. Right. So if they made another bold move this year, next year, middle of the season, this coming season, KB, that should not be a surprise to anybody in Pacerland.
And this is a scary element, but it's also NBA reality. If you sit on what you have, if you rest on your laurels a little bit and you opt for internal improvement, I think it gives a guy like Haliburton a quick thing to point to if it doesn't go well. Of like, wait, why didn't you guys do anything else?
Right.
Like, what? I see these other teams trying, and we just stopped after Siakam. Now, of course, the flip side of that is you do something and it doesn't go well, and the star probably has the amount of displeasure anyways on that. So I just think that's another wrinkle that is how the NBA has evolved, but you'd be living under a rock if you didn't think that was an element of reality.
Before we get to a morning check down, can I play this sound for you real quick? I figured I'd play this just because we alluded to it there with Tony E. See, if you didn't hear it, the flagrant foul happened on Caitlin Clark yesterday. It was Angel Reese, and listen, it was a flagrant one. To me, it wasn't a big deal. I understand because of those two, because of Caitlin Clark, just with everything going on, I understand why it's a story, even though it's ridiculous or partially ridiculous. Here was Angel Reese after the game being asked about it. This is the quote. This is the clip that's kind of working its way around Twitter and social media and everything else.
For inside, I think we were playing really hard. I think we went up really strong a lot of times and we didn't get a lot of calls. And going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got a special whistle.
So that's just the little clip that's been put out there on Twitter. Some
Angel
people got
Reese-
the special whistle referring to Caitlin Clark, of course.
She was terrible in the second half. She was terrible.
Well, since Angel Reese did the "you can't see me" thing, who's the wrestler who made that popular?
John Cena.
John
of course.
Cena. I couldn't remember. Really fake hair with John Cena.
Oh, he's got very real hair because he's got that giant bald spot on the back of his head.
Oh, is it back? Well, remember when he
we should have learned him if we grow hair in.
I know.
Yeah.
Remember when he basically went Urlacher? He
Yeah,
went
he
from
would-
bald
yeah.
to having a full head of hair like
Yeah.
Brian Urlacher
Boy,
did.
Urlacher. Oh my
Did he
God.
not?
I thought it was a
Urlacher was
Halloween costume for Urlacher.
He went Costanza.
No, you go to you fly to O'Hare now. That's all you see is
That's all
Brian
you see.
Urlacher hair product.
That's all you
ads.
see. But anyway, yeah. So Angel Reese, she's now 0-3 against Caitlin Clark since the "you can't see me" thing, 2 years ago.
I thought Tony described it quite well. I if that's Dana Evans, I think we just move on and we don't even worry about it. And again, not to get technical, but I mean those sorts of plays. I feel like you see one of those plays every single game. WNBA, NBA related. Player goes for block. They mistime it. They hit her in the head. Angel Reese does herself zero favors with her post game comments. But again,
it is what it is.
The Fever just need to win freaking games, and they've won 2 in a row now, 4 of 6, and they'll try to make it 3 in a row at home against the Mystics coming up on Wednesday. All right, pop quiz in a few. 317-239-1070 for that. 317-239-1070 for the pop quiz. Before that, let's check it down.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Yeah, let's start there. Fever winners last night, now a couple in a row. 3 out of 4, 4 out of 6. So they're winning some games here. Now 5-10 on the season. 91-83. That's your final last night, yesterday afternoon, I should say, in Gamebridge. Caitlin Clark, fantastic. 23 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds. Played 37 minutes, was great. Here's head coach Christy Sides. She loves what she's seeing offensively.
We had 4 players in double digits. It was just, they're learning each other. And that's what this is what's happening right now. They're learning each other. They're learning how to play off each other. They're recognizing, reads off each other. I mean, we have 50 points in the paint as well. We're drawing the defense, and then our guards and even Katie Lou are getting great looks because of the downhill attacks.
Big 3 ball by Katie Lou there to end the first half. I thought the best we've seen Boston and Clark play together this season. Aaliyah Boston has been very good this last week. Clark shooting it very efficiently. Of course, we saw her Thursday late night after that win, get in the gym. Had not been happy with her jumper as of late. Shot it much better. And a key defensive sequence there late. She had a big block of Marina Mayberry there late and then came down the other end. Beautiful pocket pass to Boston. And I thought that kind of put the game on ice. So Fever win 91-84. And again, the Mystics coming up Wednesday inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse. All right, shifting gears to U.S. Open. Will Haskett with us earlier. Outstanding. Andy Sweeney, the memory will be more Rory choke versus Bryson, one of the greatest shots in major championship history.
Probably. I mean, I don't know if you feel that way. I think I feel that way. I like Bryson. What he did on 18 was fantastic, but I don't know, man. There's still just a part of me that Rory, and now him not winning a major in 10 years and having heartbreak, we always like to go to the negative first a lot of times in sports media, and I feel like probably, 70% of the leads probably this morning have been about Rory and him being a tragic figure as you will, as he's trying to figure things out.
Top 10 in 6 straight U.S. Opens for Rory. He has now finished top 10 in a major 21 times since he last won a major in 2014 out Valhalla. And he becomes the first player in major championship history to finish solo second by 1 shot in back-to-back U.S. Opens. Again, Bryson, unbelievable bunker shot, incredible at the same time. Rory on 16, Rory on 18. You hate to say it, but it's true. Hands to the throat.
Yeah, he did. He choked. I know Will Haskett was like, I don't know. It's like, no, he choked.
I thought Will made a good
do
point.
That, but he did on Sunday.
Choke's a big word.
It is.
I think we often use it a bit too much. But when you look at the numbers with how Rory has putted inside of 3 feet, inside of 5 feet all week long.
He doesn't miss.
496 of 496 on the year inside of 3 feet. So that was the putt he missed on 16. And then the putt on 18 was just outside of 3 feet. He had hit 54 straight inside of 5 feet during the U.S. Open until 16 and 18. So that right there tells you everything you need to know.
Quickly, Major League Baseball, Reds losers yesterday, 5-4 to the Brew Crew. They lost 2 of 3 this weekend there against Milwaukee. Cubs losers 2-1 to the Cardinals. Sorry to Mark Dykton. Cubbies lost 2 of 3 there to St. Louis in Wrigley over the weekend. And one quick note, Mookie Betts, did you see him get injured yesterday with the Dodgers? Got hit by a pitch on his left hand in real bad pain. So he broke his left hand. He's going to see a specialist this morning to figure out exactly how long he may be out. They don't think surgery will be involved, but who knows? The reason I bring it up, Mookie Betts was by far the leader in the clubhouse for National League MVP. By far. And I think Bryce Harper probably takes over those odds in Vegas.
8:30 tonight, Game 5, Celtics Mavs, as they try to finish that one off after the Mavs won by 38 in Game 4.
All right, pop quiz time. Pop quiz, right? We good to go? 239-1070. Load them up. Pop quiz. It's coming up next on a Monday. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
This hour of The Fan is
Feel the pressure. Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
All right, before we get to a pop quiz, saw this local news item across the wire here on this Monday morning. A lot of chatter about this. Certainly when we had Paul Casaro on, the new head coach of IU Indy, back about a couple months ago at this point. He kind of teased this. It sounds like we're going to have a new building over there on IUPUI's camp. IUPUI, I'm going to say that a million times. IU Indy is the rebrand. Coming up, projected for the fall of 2026. This will be a $110 million multi-sport venue. If I'm looking at this map correctly, looks like just west of Military Park, so kind of east of the NCAA, northeast there. 4,500-seat arena, home to IU Indy men's, women's basketball programs, volleyball program, and also USA Track and Field is going to be leasing a bunch of building space inside of there. So as someone that's seen many a game inside the old jungle there in the natatorium, RIP to Ron Hunter's jungle, and that 1,200-seat venue there, certainly one of the more high school-looking venues in all of D1 there. So shout out to Paul Casaro and company and IU Indy getting that building, again, targeting the fall of 2026.
Scotty may know he's in here for the pop quiz. When does that name go official? Usually the new... Is it when, July 1st? Okay, yeah, the new fiscal year. I knew that was coming up here within the next few weeks. And, yeah, saying IUPUI is something you're probably going to say for the next 5 years.
IU Indy, yeah, that's going to be a struggle for me on that.
I remember Coach telling us that, the new arena potentially being announced. There we go.
The Fairgrounds is a beautiful, beautiful venue, but it's just hard to get away from campus like that on a routine basis, especially if you're, playing a game during rush hour or something like that. So, that news item here on this Monday morning. All right, Andy, a number 1 through 8 for the pop quiz.
Let's go 4. How does 4 sound today, Mark Dykton?
Sounds good. That would be for Sam.
Hey, Sam.
Hey, how's it going?
Sam, you sound excited. Good Monday morning to you. You a Bryson DeChambeau fan?
No, I was rooting for Rory, to be honest, but, whatever.
What do you think that crowd split was, Rory versus Bryson? I was also in the Rory camp.
Oh, I think it was 75% Rory.
Oh, you think it was that high?
I mean, the Rory chants and everything else, yeah.
Really?
I heard a lot of USGA chants. I was kind of thinking it was...
Dude, again, Sam, you sound like Rory putting on the 18th hole.
I said I heard a lot of USA chants, so I was kind of assuming that it was more of a Bryson crowd, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I thought at times a little bit of some drunk fandom there as Rory was standing over some putts, but you're bound to get that in those environments. Sam, thank you for calling. Good luck on the pop quiz. Andy will throw number 1 your way.
All right, let's go here, Sam. Let's get a winner on a Monday. The Fever picked up their 5th win of the season yesterday against Chicago at the Field House. Who was the game's leading scorer? Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, Marina Mabry, Kennedy Carter.
Let's go Caitlin Clark.
Kennedy Carter behaved yesterday.
She did. They had one kind of tie-up. I don't think Carter was a part of it, but she diffused the situation. I think Clark was going to the bucket, and they got the arms tied up. Yeah, they all did the thing. They all put their hands in the air. Everyone's tied up. It was like Dennis Rodman.
What did he guess?
He got it. Yeah. Caitlin Clark.
Okay. All right. Sam, we're holding on by a thread of your service, so we'll try to get through this. Bryson is the winner of the U.S. Open. Second time that Mr. DeChambeau has won the U.S. Open. Name the last golfer before Bryson DeChambeau to record multiple U.S. Open championships. You going to go Tiger, John Rahm, Brooks Koepka, or Dustin Johnson?
Brooks Koepka.
Question number 3.
Dustin Johnson's fallen off.
Dude, what
cliff,
happened to him? What happened? He shot, 70? Well,
there can be some off-the-course
activities. Just because he has a beautiful wife doesn't mean that his golf game's gone to crap. Guy's shooting 76s on the reg. Anyway.
I'll shoot 76 and get to hang out with Paulie. I'd happily take a 76.
Question 3. The Celtics can end the NBA Finals with a win tonight in Boston. Celtics head coach Joe Mazzulla is in his 2nd season at the helm there in Boston. Here's the question, though, Sam. Which of the following coaches did not win the NBA title in his 1st season as a head coach? Pat Riley, Steve Kerr, Nick Nurse, or they all won in their first season as head coach?
Pat Riley.
Sam, number 4, the Panthers are up 3-1 in the Stanley Cup final after failing to complete a sweep. Edmonton 8-1 in Game 4. The Vegas Golden Knights won the Cup last season, which means a Florida victory will give us back-to-back first-time Stanley Cup winners. When was the last time we had first-time Stanley Cup winners in back-to-back years? Was it 2018 and 2019? Was it 2006 and 2007? You love the Andy Sweeney cackle in the background when he knows the question's just such a middle finger.
It's so difficult. Poor Sam.
95-96 or 1928-1929?
95-96.
Whoa, you said that confidently, Sam.
Yeah. I don't know. You got to be confident, you know?
It's like, do you know it or do you just want to get this over with?
No, I'm a hockey fan, and that would be the first general era that I could think that would have happened.
Okay. All right.
All right, well, here's another hockey question. Question number 5, Sam. The Golden Knights won the Cup last season in just their 6th year of existence. Name the expansion franchise in one of the 4 major North American pro sports leagues, so MLB, NFL, NHL, and NBA, that needed the least amount of time to win their first title. Good luck. Was it the Golden Knights, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Florida Marlins, the Arizona Diamondbacks? It's a good question.
That is a good question. Oh, man.
I'll give you a hint. I was going to go with the Marlins. That's not the right answer. So, again, so it's Golden Knights, Bucks, or Diamondbacks.
We just brought this team up last segment, didn't we not?
We did. It's a good question.
I'll go with the Diamondbacks. Why not?
I'm always so hesitant to say, like, we just brought this up because then you get hit with a dose of reality when they don't give the right answer,
right.
basically
like
telling you.
Why would we have brought up the Arizona Diamondbacks?
Sam's like, dude, I didn't listen. I turned on the show at 9:28, man. Just decided to call in here. All right, good start, bad finish. Is that where we're going?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like Rory.
Oh, man.
Isn't it? We just went 16
pouring
and 18.
in those 20-footers early, Rory.
Yes, he was.
Caitlin Clark, excuse me, and Brooks Koepka.
Correct.
We're both correct.
Correcto.
And then it went off the rails.
Yeah, question number 3. Which coach did not win the NBA title in their first season? They all did. Pat Riley did, Steve Kerr did, Nick Nurse did.
2018-19 for hockey.
You blew it!
And not 95-96. And then the Milwaukee Bucks there.
Their 3rd season of existence.
I did not know that.
1971. Yeah, the Marlins were their 5th season, and Arizona was the 4th. So it was a good guess by me and the caller, but he got it wrong.
Thank you, Sam.
Nonetheless, good job, Sam. We'll take a break. We'll come back, wrap it up. It's a Monday here on The Fan.
A quick question for dads.
Ball with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm all about appointment sports viewing. We certainly got that yesterday. Hell, locally, I think, CBS noon, you got Fever and Sky lead right into the final round of the U.S. Open. Say no more on that. Tonight, we've got a bit of that. Of course, Game 5 of the NBA Finals. But, Andy, I said to you earlier in the show, and I think you guys will be in the same boat, as much as we'll consume Game 5 in the Bowen household tonight, we will be watching Lily King.
Oh, yeah.
When she gets into the old starting block for the 100-meter breaststroke final. Again, the number 1 seed, the brash, cocky, confident USA queen from the Rio Olympics, and has continued it here as she tries for her third Olympics. Again, needs to finish first or, in all likelihood, second to advance to the Olympics coming up in Paris. So a couple things on the old docket tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Yeah, I mean, my wife's a swimmer in high school, so, she can kind of tell me what's going on. And obviously, if you watch the Summer Olympics, that's one of the main things, and we're so good at it here in the States.
Rowdy Gaines' emotion.
Oh, he's great, too. No, I mean,
I love
it's all great. Showing the families and the parents and the siblings and everything. We did the story a couple months ago. I guess NBC is going to have select parents are going to be wearing like the heart monitors for the actual during the actual Olympic Games, at least on the swimming side. I know that was a story.
That's great.
That was out there. Yeah, if we can get Pat 40 this week, I would love to know when his daughter won. Oh, and I forget if it was a gold or a bronze. Won an Olympic medal 4 years ago, and he says you can't even watch. You can't even watch your own son or daughter do something like that. I had a question for you. Game 5 tonight, Celtics favored by 6.5 over Dallas. If the Celtics win tonight, who likes that the least? Is it the Knicks fan? Who likes it the least if they were to win tonight? Because Boston has won so much, whether it be the NHL, the Patriots, obviously. Right. You think of Paul Pierce, that was more than a decade ago. But, the Celtics win. They win a championship.
In this market, we should hate Boston, just based off, Patriot Colts. And, I guess if you even want to go there with the Pacers getting swept by them. But, why would I hate Drew Holiday?
Yeah, that's kind of how
Why would I
hate
Jaylen Brown?
Yeah, I don't hate
Al
the
Horford
Celtics.
Seems to be well-liked.
Joe Mazzulla's a guy that everyone crapped on. He's here, too, and could win the NBA title.
Brad Stevens, the architect of it. So, yeah, Jason Tatum, So, I don't... Yes, because the geographic region of it.
It's probably the Knicks.
Well, honestly, you probably just hate their fans more than their players, It's just...
Did you see the old guy that got beat up by the young guys? You see it? You ever watching these fight videos? That's all my timeline becomes after one of these games.
In the crowd? Yeah. I forgot that was Celtics.
Yeah, Celtic on Celtic crime.
I think Boston gets it done tonight, but again,
Probably.
The weight of the piano on their back if they don't, going back to Game 6.
And again, tonight at 11:47 after Boston wins, Brad Stevens to IU rumors on Eaves.com. Jake and Jimmy at noon, JMV at 3. Have a good afternoon.